can take a bragging podcast. I can take a conniving podcast. I just can't stomach a sentimental podcast.
Oh, very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I was also thinking, things change. I'm not the same podcast I was in Vancouver.
Yeah, that is good, actually.
That one's funny, too. Maybe I should have gone with that.
Yeah.
I gave you both options.
Yeah. But you had a little Eric Roberts you wanted to do.
Well,
I mean, that's actually right. Cliff
right.
Roberts.
That's the doctor character. Right. I'm worried about doing Eric Roberts. Like, I feel like if you do even an impression of Snyder in this movie, you maybe never come back from that.
Right. You get evil. Well, did this movie make him evil? Is he evil? Is Eric Roberts evil, or does he just look evil? And please weigh in, guys.
I think he's at the very least broken. Is that fair?
Can I weigh in on this?
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Because like this is like one of his first ever movies. Like he's only like 3 movies in at this point.
Has Pope of Greenwich Village happened at this point?
No, that's the next year.
Okay.
He had to be persuaded to take this role.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he was bright enough to know this is not a sympathetic one.
Yes.
But based on what I've read about him, he's bad news. And then I would even say in this movie, I found myself thinking on the way over here, it would have been interesting if this was sort of like more influenced by Travis Bickle as a performance choice.
See, I think it's an unbelievable performance, but
You do?
I do. I think it's an incredible performance, but I think it's the kind of performance that's like ruinous for a career. And I think, there's all the dumb hand-wringing that happens over like when people play the Joker, they never come back from that. And I'm like, it's a fucking clown with face paint. Like, even as extreme as you're going to make him, people know what movie they're in.
Right.
And this is a performance I watch where I'm like, I don't know how you come back from this.
Yeah.
I don't know how you play this thoroughly and don't have it somehow permanently alter your brain.
And he trusted Fosse when he agreed to it, and I don't think Fosse did well by him. And I also think
Perhaps.
Rupert Pupkin is another version of who this character could have been, but he was just following orders.
I mean, even more than the sort of the violence, obviously, and the ugliness of the character and whatever, the desperation of this guy.
Yeah.
Like, every scene of this movie is like the porno scene in Taxi Driver, but amped up to 75.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, Jesus Christ, guy, please, you're making me so fucking uncomfortable.
Combined with the firecracker scene in Boogie Nights.
Yes.
Yes, that's a good one where you're just like, I want to turn this off because I don't want to look at this guy anymore.
Yeah,
like,
so
he's just making me feel
Let's get to it right away, because this is a podcast called Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers. They're given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion products they want. Sometimes those checks clear. Sometimes they bounce. Baby.
Cool.
This is a mini-series on the films of Bob Fosse.
Mm-hmm.
It is called Pod That Jazzcast.
That's right.
This is our final episode.
It's his
Sadly,
final movie.
career cut short.
Yeah.
Started late
By
making
death.
movies. Died young.
Ish. Youngish.
Youngish.
What was he? Let's find out. How
He
old
was old
60.
for him.
60.
The fact that he got to that decade is kind of amazing.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you the research, but he essentially expected to be dead after all that jazz.
Right.
And then he was like, I'm still alive. I made the movie where I'm dead. I don't know what to do
Right.
now. Like, I figured this was it for me.
All That Jazz has perhaps the greatest final film energy of all time.
Right. But then he made another movie and then he died.
The other thing is, I always thought, because, I mean, this movie was so damaging to his career, that I was like, he made this movie and everyone hated it, and then he died immediately. And it's like, no, he lived for like another 5 years.
He was working on other stuff.
5,
and
6
then
years.
died,
He just
yeah.
never could get a movie made again.
Yeah.
He went back to the stage, and this movie is a shame for reasons that we'll get into, but
So here's the thing. I love this movie. I think this is a great movie. But I think this movie is almost unbearable to watch. I think this movie is like staring into the sun. I think it's one of the darkest films ever
It's
made.
very upsetting.
It is like brutal and unpleasant. I do think it's incredible. I will admit, watching it this time, I like couldn't even fully focus on it
you think
for the
this is
sake of my sanity.
you really think this is a fabulous, incredible movie?
I do. But it's the kind of film that I don't ever feel like I can actually endorse or recommend to
Recommend to
people.
people.
Right.
Why would you recommend
Not
this
even
movie to
right, not
someone,
even because
apart
like
from his-
of what it says about me, but I'm just like, I mean, this I don't know what even to tell you. Like,
Grueling, unpleasant.
yeah,
Yes.
like the first time I saw this movie, it fucked me up for like a week. It like really haunted me. And mind you, in the wake of watching it, I went deep into like, I read the fucking Bogdanovich book.
Ugh.
Boy.
You know, and I watched Galaxy, and I was just like so sort of obsessed with the tragedy of the whole fucking thing. Read like Killing of a Playmate, like all the stuff sort of surrounding it. But I spent a week where I was like really fucking haunted by it. And so even in preparation for this podcast, I was like, I'm gonna fucking half watch it because if I give it full attention, I won't be able to record tomorrow. If I like fully engage with this thing, I will be too haunted by it to engage.
Or at least haunted by the soundtrack.
All of it.
One of the worst soundtracks from the best filmmakers. And by the way, I do want to mention, I really do appreciate you giving Bob Fosse the credit as the filmmaker he was. And I do think he is, as highly regarded in the theater community.
Sure.
Obviously, no one could get enough of sucking a stick in that world.
Yes.
I do think is incredibly underrated as a filmmaker.
I agree.
I think so too. And I think part of it is just that his legacy is so large in theater that people come to conclusions of what they think he must have been as a filmmaker. You know?
Yes. But that said, I have a lot of thoughts about this movie. One of is what a waste of such of a guy with, talk about his filmmaking, not even, Pauline Kael would call them tricks.
Sure.
But the skill and the talent in his quiver, using it towards such a nasty, brutal, I don't want to say a trivial story, but when I think about what's a great movie, I think, why was this made? What's the point of this?
Well,
what are we taking away as human beings?
It's the fascinating thing of like, along with just the horrible tragedy of Dorothy Stratton's death, two huge directing careers are essentially immediately killed in the wake of this thing, right?
Well,
Like Bogdanovich essentially
put into a
torpedoes
coma,
himself.
at least with Bogdanovich.
Yeah, and never like fully recovers.
Cult of personality wise, he's been intact and
Yeah,
Sure.
he kind of recovered it, but yes, certainly he never was a major
No.
filmmaker.
And he got to marry her sister. So was it really
Sure
a sad
did.
story?
Well, and then the Fosse thing, like when you read interviews with Bogdanovich before he died about like when Stratton would always come up and they'd ask him about Star 80 and he'd be like, I was so fucking angry he would do that.
Yes.
That he would do that to another filmmaker.
Oh,
Right.
That he framed it not that they were friends, but like this
right, like the brotherhood of directors. Sure,
right. And he said like,
right.
and he got exactly what he deserved. Everyone hated the fucking movie and destroyed his career and he died.
That reminds me of in Anatomy of a Murder when they're prosecuting they're like, let's think about ruining a man's life before we convict this person of rape. And it's like, anyone want to talk about the woman?
Absolutely. But it is
to another filmmaker,
It
too.
is fascinating that I do think a lot of the response to this movie was, well, Bob Fosse brought this on himself. He cursed himself. Why would he do this?
He has the written and directed by credit, and it's his last movie. And it is, he really went into this, guns blazing. I'm going to get the rights to this article. I don't care if I have to call her Dorothy's mother. I'm telling this story, and I'm disappointed that this movie breaks my heart.
And he dies restaging Sweet Charity.
Yes.
Which is essentially the thing he was
Gwen
trying
Verdon's arms,
to avoid doing.
As a film, but not as a show. They're two completely different entities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yes, he dies of Gwen Verdon's arm. There's a certain poetry to the whole fucking thing. But I also think, probably by his own admission at that point in his career, it's like the last thing I want to do is have to revisit my past works.
We can get into it. There are many things he did.
His own fault.
Look, our guest today from Double Threat, the
Hi.
TV show Difficult People, Julie Klausner is here.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, Julie.
The second we announced we were doing about Fosse, everyone said,
Julie better be on one of these.
It better. Julie's doing one of these.
So kind. I really do appreciate it.
100%. Have to have you here for Star 80. Yeah, this movie bums me out.
It's a
hot take.
bummer.
Yeah, I don't know. No, my Eric Roberts question, just to go back to that, it's like, I feel like in the 80s, he was considered a major talent.
Yeah.
He was nominated for an Oscar for Runaway Train.
Does Runaway Train happen before this?
No, after.
Jesus.
I'm saying, like, this is very, very early in his career.
He took it to get an Oscar.
100%.
Yes.
Everyone making this movie thinks they're getting Oscar nominations. But, like, in the 80s, he is, a talent.
Yes.
He is seen as a talent. And then when is it that he then becomes seen as on-set nightmare? You don't want Eric Roberts. It's like late 80s, early 90s.
It's a very similar arc to Mickey Rourke, I think. Because
you don't want to deal with that guy.
It's not like at some point the guy has a mental break and then becomes too difficult relative to his talent. It's that there's like 10 years of everyone being like, this guy's a fucking movie star. If only he could get his demons in check.
Right.
And not only does he never get his demons in check, but he never becomes like a commercial star.
Never.
He's never worth enough money to the
stops-
studio to put up with his bullshit.
He never stops working.
No.
And then he just becomes like the guy who makes like 1 million direct-to-video movies a year. And it's like, fun fact, he's, related to Julia Roberts. and then he'll pop up.
He's Julia
Okay.
Roberts'
Yeah.
brother.
And
Interesting.
Emma Roberts' father.
Yes, he's Emma Roberts'
shit.
father.
Right.
And like Julia Roberts was like his annoying kid sister
Yeah.
who would be on set and people are like, ugh, Eric Roberts'
Right.
sister is here.
Because
Like,
Eric Roberts has an Oscar nomination essentially like 10 years before Pretty Woman.
right. Well, 5.
Runaway Train's what?
It's
80?
Runaway Train is 1985.
Okay. I mean, but there's even like you had like Christopher Nolan giving him a good little supporting part in Dark Knight and being like Eric Roberts' reclamation project. And then
A
he
little
kind of
bit.
right, doesn't really go anywhere. Mickey Rourke, when he was winning all his fucking wrestler awards, kept on being like, do you remember this in all of his speeches? He was like, one of the greatest undersung actors is Eric Roberts. You gave me another chance. You should give Eric Roberts another chance. And the main thing that translated into was he got Stallone to hire Eric Roberts in The Expendables.
Yeah, he is in the Expendable. I mean, he currently has like 40 movies, 50, 60
Yeah.
movies in production.
Too many movies.
Well, I just don't understand it. Anyway, I was just shocked that this was so early in his career that he was actually almost like an ingenue.
So
much
what
like-
does he do before this?
Before this, he's in King of the Gypsies,
Okay.
which he gets a Golden Globe like new star nomination for, and then something called Raggedy Man, which is
Wow.
with Sissy Spacek,
Okay.
where he's sort of the
Raggedy Man?
co-lead. Yeah, he's
Uh-huh.
the Raggedy Man.
It's like Raggedy Ann.
That's what it is. It's just no.
It was
It's
dark and gritty.
I mean, God, Sissy Spacek. It's directed by Jack Fisk, her husband.
okay. It sounds kind of
Divorced mother and telephone switchboard operator living with her 2 sons in a small town during World War II.
sounds
It was
charming.
her follow-up to Coal Miner's
Okay.
Daughter. So
Okay.
it's like anyway.
Yeah.
And then Star 80. That's
Wow.
his first 3 movies. And then Pope of Greenwich Village, Coca-Cola Kid, Runaway Train. He gets an Oscar nomination.
Right.
And then everything after that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Like, never heard of any of these movies.
Right. The moment they go, congratulations, Eric, you've made it, he doesn't give another memorable performance.
Until it's like
Until
he's
Dark
the
Knight.
villain in like The Specialist or
Right.
Heaven's Prisoners.
But even at that point, I think people are going like,
Ooh,
is this
yeah.
where this guy was supposed to end up?
Right.
Ask Sandy Dennis
Well,
if he
sure.
was worth it.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many
There are parallels,
fucking
right?
stories. Yes.
Especially when you think about this movie being about people that hang out in LA for long enough to get cast,
Yeah.
unless they're horribly unpleasant, in which
Yes.
case even LA is like, you are not enough of a mensch even to
Right.
hang out at the
Right.
Playboy Mansion.
Right. You creep us out.
Mhm.
I'm now I didn't realize Emma Roberts is with Garrett Hedlund.
Yeah. They,
And they just had a
married
baby.
and have a baby.
Rhodes.
Yeah.
Rhodes Hedlund.
Rhodes, Rhodes.
Correct.
Wow.
Yes. And apparently
Have a good name.
him and Julia Roberts
Yeah, middle
didn't
name Scholar.
talk for a while. Yeah, they're being aspirational.
Yeah.
4 wives or no 3 wives.
Well, yeah, he and Julia didn't talk for like decades, right? And it was
Yeah.
sort of when Emma was older that I think the plea was made for like for the sake of her.
He made that T-shirt for her that said "Aloe Vera."
I mean, he just seems like a huge bummer to me, but
Everything
this
about him is-
performance is certainly transfixing. You
Snyder
can't look
was
away from it.
worse.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Yes.
guy is worse. Right.
Yes.
That guy's really bad, Paul Snyder.
I think one of the things that curses him with this performance, even though I'm realizing that his sort of most beloved performances were after this, is this maybe reveals something inherent in him. You know, I'm not.
I
accusing
know
him
what
of
you mean.
crimes,
Or
but I'm
whatever. You
just
play
like,
a role like this and people are just like, now you're that guy to me and I can't shake
there's
that.
something that feels very honest in this performance that does not feel like acting, where there's an energy that he is revealing within himself that is just you can't totally forget. You know, it is just like this performance and this movie feel like staring into the sun for me. And I think it's that difference of like he and Rourke were both trying to be these like troubled James Deany leading men.
Right.
But Rourke never gave a performance that bummed you out this fucking much. There was always this sort of like sad poetry to Rourke. And then Roberts, you just have this back of your head. I mean, like Ebert, when this movie came out, went in a whole thing of like, this is the best performance of the year. How is this being snubbed?
Right.
And he's just too much of a creep. People don't want to.
Yeah, it's
laud
it's
this.
unwatchable.
They
It's
don't want to give
so
him any credit for
unsympathetic.
doing
Right.
something this unpleasant.
Can I give you guys a little context on Star 80?
Please.
Just to help, especially a movie like this. You
Yeah.
sort of
No,
need-
David.
David's rubbing his temples already, trying to dig into the story.
Like I said,
Yeah.
Bob Fosse made All That Jazz. Now I'm imagining, Julie, that you enjoy the film All That Jazz.
Oh, it's the best ever. I call this movie "Oh That Incel."
Indeed.
You wrote a really good piece for the New Yorker that everyone should look up about when the Quad did a Fosse Film Festival.
I
Right.
saw all of them, and
Yes. You did
had
the
never
Fosse
seen.
Diary.
And I'd never seen Star 80 before, and I was as turned off as you, but I did not walk away with a sense of this being a great film.
Sure. I
so-
can't even imagine what it feels like to watch in a room with other people also.
I mean, think about watching the news about a shooting, or
Sure. Sure. Or George C. Scott having to watch the video of his daughter in hardcore.
No, that was great. She was having a great time. Come on, she had her bush and everything. That was terrific. Hardcore's camp. This was this happens every day, and Fosse, with all of his access to style and
Sure.
storytelling, decided to make sure people knew that Dorothy Stratton was raped after she was murdered.
It is bizarre how transfixed so many people were by this story by her.
It is. I mean, yeah, we can talk about it. He makes all that jazz.
Mhm.
There's no planned follow-up. There's nothing else.
His planned follow-up is a grave.
Right, exactly. According to Lynn Lovett, who is his script supervisor and one of
Mhm.
his loyalists, she says, I think he was almost embarrassed to still be alive after all that jazz. So he eventually is like, all right, what am I going to do? He thinks about doing a ballet at the Joffrey. He thinks about doing a musical adaptation of Big Deal on Madonna Street called Big Deal.
Okay.
I think that does eventually
Big
become
Deal
a project.
happened
Exactly.
eventually,
You know, he thinks about Cy Coleman's musical Atlantic City, which he was sort of like, my heart wasn't in it. Whatever, you know, that doesn't come together. He's asked to do Chicago as a movie with Goldie Hawn and Liza Minnelli.
I mean,
which sounds fun. But he was kind of like, no, I don't fucking do that. Like, I don't do stage to movie. Like, I do something else, right? Like, that's not the Bob Fosse way. I can't get it up again for old material. It's like trying to go back to an old girlfriend. That's his quote.
And it was his old girlfriend's dream project, not his.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So Patty Chayefsky, his drinking buddy / mentor / Hollywood whatever
/ first name that comes up after the credits, thanks to Patty Chayefsky.
Yes.
Dedicated to really again. You know this was about a woman, right?
He slides across
a human woman.
The Pulitzer Prize winning Death of a Playmate article in the Village Voice, and Fosse says, unsurprisingly, maybe to Julie, maybe to all of us, I really identified with Paul Snyder when I read this, because he was trying to get in. Not like I've been excluded that much, but there's just, I think he was just like, I get the Hollywood insanity of this
and
man.
I think Paul Snyder is how he fears he is perceived. I think it's exactly who he fears he is.
A schmucky guy.
I believe that his quote, which is gross in its own right, was, he is who I would be if I were not successful.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Which is grounds for prison.
There's
go to actual prison.
There's the moment he cross cuts between and
Griffin, imagine saying, if I didn't have a podcast, I'd be Kyle Rittenhouse. You know what I mean? Don't say that out loud.
I'm the defender of this movie, and it's the moment in it that I think is probably grossest, and it's this thesis. There's the moment he's cross-cutting between the sexual assault of her dead body, of her corpse, and then Hefner looking over the contact sheet, and the Roger Rees, not Peter Bogdanovich character in the editing room, and they're both very serene and at peace. And it does feel like that's the exact point Fosse's making is, thank God I had talent and I found a thing I did well. Like it's upsetting.
But also, these poor guys haven't learned yet, and they're not going to be okay.
Right. This is going to destroy them. Right.
Yeah, there is right. There's
don't
doom,
you think
there's
of the great
doom
man
surrounding everything.
Her mother was not in that montage. Her cute little sister.
Nope.
Future Mrs. Bogdanovich was not. Their pain is irrelevant.
Yes.
Well, her sister was like a child, right?
Yes.
Right, but she would learn about it.
No,
Yeah.
Oh, no, 100%.
And would soon be a bride, which is really the happy ending, as I mentioned.
But yes, Fosse's take is basically like, look, if they had accepted him into Hollywood, this probably wouldn't have happened. This fascinates him for whatever reason. He gets the rights to the article.
It's almost a Hitler painting thing for him.
Or Charles Manson succeeding in the recording.
Yeah,
industry.
Charles Manson dropping an album.
But
whatever.
the answer is always like, A, the person wasn't good at the thing, and be.
No,
and with
right.
Paul Snyder, it was even more nebulous. What is the thing?
He
The
was
thing
a
is,
pimp.
right, but it was like you just want to be successful. You want to make money off of other people. You want to be respected.
Which is a time-honored tradition
Absolutely.
in Hollywood, being a barnacle. And
there wasn't even a failed art that he was trying to do that he could put his finger on, right? There was
Freeloading.
not a creative pursuit, yes. And then the additional thing is, like, when people say, like, man, if Hitler just fucking got into art school, all of that would have been avoided. It's like you're making it sound like it was just some judgmental person behind a desk who didn't like their fucking packet.
a gatekeeping girl boss.
Versus that, like, perhaps these people emanated energy that turned off everyone around them their entire lives. And it wasn't that they were turned evil Joker style. By
Antisocial,
pushed into
antisocial
a vat of rejection. Right.
abuser, violent abuser, sociopath.
That's the thing that I do think Roberts gets too well. Is this guy immediately makes you want to peel your skin off.
Right. So why am I hanging out with him for an hour and 45 minutes?
Well, that's what audiences are certainly asking as they're filing out of the theater.
Yeah. Or not filing out of the theater. Filing out of the theater into a different movie 30 seconds in.
And expecting my sympathy towards him because he really does get the Roy Scheider treatment in this.
I don't know if I feel any sympathy for him. He frightens me.
No,
in
but
this
I'm
movie.
saying Fosse does. And that is so gross to me.
I think Fosse, look, I really think this movie is just like a total poison pill movie from Fosse, right?
Sure.
It's just like this industry is sick, it's disgusting, right? You know, like that's more what.
But he was like that in Vancouver. What was his excuse in Vancouver?
Well, no, I mean, Bob Fosse certainly is a complicated human being.
Yeah.
There's no question. But like, I don't see a lot of sympathy. But no, I know what you're saying, Julie. It's like it is fascinating, but very dark that he
Portrait
is
of an incel as
interested
a
in
who
this man.
cares.
Right. He goes deep into this research process, right? He gets all the police reports. He gets taped interviews and like
access to the house where
transcripts.
she was murdered and raped.
Well, he breaks into that house, yes, which we'll get to, which is intense. He gets.
Does Killing of a Unicorn, is that published after the movie comes out?
Yeah, because that movie is
Right, that's his
that book is
response.
partly Bogdanovich being like, I'm going to set the record straight, which
Yeah.
also nobody needed. Like,
No.
quiet.
No.
You be quiet as well.
Agree.
No. And have you read that, Julie?
I've read the Village Voice article that the film was based on.
The Bogdanovich book is perhaps the most upsetting piece of art I've ever come across.
What about the film that he made that was shelved and bought back and bankrupt?
They All
him?
Laughed? Is that what it's called?
Have you seen that?
I have seen that, yeah. And I've seen Galaxina, which is the sci-fi movie they don't really cover in this. I haven't seen the horror movie.
Yeah. I haven't seen the Fantasy Island she guest starred. You know what I mean? Like,
No, they're like two significant film roles before the Bogdanovich movie. They All Laughed. I know a lot of people defend.
That's what it's called, yes.
Yes.
That's like seen as sort of like, a cult
It's
classic.
been reclaimed. I feel just watching it, it's not even like I'm making an intellectual judgment. Emotionally, the thing feels so haunted to me
Right.
that I cannot enjoy it.
Especially that he tried to like
Valley of the
recreate
Dolls.
it and like bring it out and like retitle it or whatever, like do the thing where he kept
bought the film
reviving
back
it.
from the studio because they didn't want to release
Wasted
it
all
because
his
she had
money
been
on it.
murdered, and he bankrupted himself trying to self-release it. I find that too haunting. The Bogdanovich book is an even more extreme version of what you're talking about. It's like, do you not understand that I'm the real victim of this? I understood her better than anyone else.
Absolutely.
Yes, the Bogdanovich. I mean, that guy is a nightmare.
The other thing about it that's just horrifying is the way he keeps on speaking about her. When it was like they were together for 10 weeks or something, it was like he was the only person who truly understood her.
We saved her.
Right. He saved her.
Unsuccessfully saved her.
Right. This whole thing where it's like right. But he has this complex that he saved her, even though directly leads to her death. And then the other thing is he speaks about her like she's his daughter, and he is proud of how smart she was. When he would introduce her to friends and he would make her read books, and he'd be like, "See, she got it."
All these relationships of his so creepy, like
creepy.
And I don't want to judge him for marrying her sister. I that's absolutely his business. I just don't like that we're focused on the men around her. And
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
But this is the syndrome of these beautiful women, and they become these icons where we don't know anything about them. They die, and they turn.
They were
into
murdered
these, like,
when they were still beautiful.
These angels with halos around them, where we just see pictures of them, and you're like, oh, and then you get like weird legends around them. All that shit. That's clearly what's going on here. Bob Fosse writes a script, passes it to Patty Chayefsky, being like, "Can you punch this up?" Patty Chayefsky says, "It's fine. You don't. It's perfect.
No,
Don't touch it."
Yeah.
But
What he
Patty
really,
Chayefsky.
and then he puts on gloves and goes into a fucking chemical bath.
Patty Chayefsky had just worked on Altered States, which is
Sure.
his last movie, which he hates the director so much. He hates how it ends up that he takes his name off the movie. And then he dies in 1981 of cancer. So, like, that casts this weird pall over things. I feel like he's gone now.
A weirder
right?
Paul than Paul Snyder.
Maybe a weirder Paul than Paul Snyder.
Paul Snyder's so run of the. There's a million guys like that.
At Patty Chayefsky's funeral, Fosse famously dances. Said he had promised him if Patty died first, he would do his last public appearance as a dancer at his funeral.
Yeah.
Apparently, he danced for 30 seconds about it. 30 seconds. There was nothing funny about it. Bob made it totally appropriate. That's E.L. Doctorow.
Wow.
Said that.
It's like, for my money, the most touching moment in the Fosse Verdon series, which you were in.
Yes.
Yes, as one of the
burlesque dancers
burlesque women. Yes.
that assaulted him sexually when he was a young man.
Yeah.
Was that fun to make?
Yes, I was very honored to be involved with it.
Did that come about from your love of Fosse? Like,
yes,
okay.
and Tommy Kail and Lynn were very kind and welcoming me to the set, not just for my role, but when they filmed the All That Jazz moment, and Fosse's daughter was in the audience, and Lynn got to do the run, and then Sam Rockwell got to do the run, and then Tommy Kail got to do the run in the audience, and I was very honored to be a part of that.
That's so cool.
With Nicole there.
Yeah.
It was very cool. Yeah.
David?
Yep.
The CFOs that get it. The CFOs that don't. Am I making myself clear?
Yeah, let's talk about the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer.
Today's CFO is critical to the strategy and success of the business. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah, and in growing companies, there are two kinds of CFOs. One who's struggling to keep up, spreadsheets everywhere, manual processes, errors, lack of visibility into the numbers.
Sounds like you.
Weeks to close the books.
The other is more like me, kind of on top of their game, automated reports, inventory, e-commerce, and HR flow into the financial model seamlessly. Insights coming with the click of a button. This is the kind of thing. It feels even weird for this to be captured on
Everyone
mic.
knows these dynamics.
But also, you and I are just batting around this conversation all the time. This is our casual.
We're constantly editing it out of the show just because it gets repetitive. But with NetSuite, okay, it gives you visibility and control of all your financials, inventory, HR, planning, budgeting, everything you need to grow all in one place. And that's why it's the #1 cloud financial system used by over 29,000 growing businesses.
David, it's like I told you. I already said this. I don't know how much more clear I can make myself. The CFOs that get it. The CFOs that don't.
Yeah, NetSuite's the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth. And you can automate your processes. You can close your books in no time. You can stay well ahead of your competition. 93% of surveyed businesses increase their visibility and control after upgrading to NetSuite.
It makes so much sense. I completely understand everything we're saying. And David, I must call to action now.
Yeah.
Over 29,000 businesses already use NetSuite. So here's what I want you to do.
Do it. Tell me.
I want you to head to netsuite.com/check for a special one-of-a-kind financing offer. That's netsuite.com/check. netsuite.com/check.
This movie is not commercially appealing, obviously. This is not an interesting project. But Alan Ladd Jr., crazy old Alan Ladd Jr., over at the Ladd Company, which is at this point at Warner Brothers, gives him an $11 million budget, gives him a $1 million salary to direct, Fosse's highest ever, and gives him final cut.
Yeah.
It's just these days where Alan Ladd was just sort of like, well, you're an artist. Like,
well, and Ladd had also just saved All That Jazz, and that fucking paid off beautifully for him. So you do understand him being like, to fucking blank check status, whatever. If he wants to do it, he'll fucking make it work. Which all those guys always cite Alan Ladd as like the last of a breed who would just believe in a filmmaker that much.
It was the end of the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the last guy standing from that whole era.
They have to agree to not use Peter Bogdanovich's name, not to use Dorothy's mother's name, right? You know, they're
credited as Dorothy's mother. They never say her name.
Correct. And then they start shooting.
They change the siblings' names too.
Sure.
Right.
Then they start shooting the movie, and guess what? Bob Fosse was really annoying the whole time. It's like the research every single time. It's like, yeah, and he was this kind of like crazy tyrant who was very difficult to work with. And yes, he made the location scout break into the murder home without a permit and, take pictures and like make sure that they have like the carpet exactly the same and everything, right? Like, like this like detailed recreation of the crime scenes. Very creepy.
To be fair, the Village Voice article, which I think is a very well written article, described their like I think at one point she mentions that her body was uncharacteristically in rigor mortis instead of just kind of like translucent and reclining and all of her. So I don't completely blame him for being interested in that detail of an article written by a woman. But his attention to the detail of it and the sexual violence of it and combining the two in a lascivious, revolting way is, I think, unforgivable.
Well, it's the whole thing, the Fosse thing he loves in all of the movies other than Sweet Charity, where it's like, I'm dealing with different temporalities. I'm dealing with different states of reality, right? You're sort of doing this like parallel editing between these different threads. This movie, you have the interview sort of superstructure that he loves so much, where I believe, once again, he is the
pioneer of when you see Lenny, you remember the first time I ever saw Chevy Chase being a young man thinking, oh, this is where this comes from.
Right.
You like Lenny? How do you feel about Lenny?
I think it's a masterpiece. I think it could lose 45 minutes.
I agree with that. I agree. I love Lenny. We were David and Colin Quinn, our guests, were a little softer on Lenny. I think Lenny is pretty unimpeachable as a piece of filmmaking, even if it is 45 minutes.
Gorgeous looking movie.
The fact that the superstructure he decides to do is, running the story in chronological order,
except for the flash forward at the beginning to the murder.
This is the thing. So it's like you have her interviews with the press, you have her story running in real time, but you pretty much fucking open the movie on the worst of it.
Right.
And so it's just looming over fucking everything. It's not even like you know what you're buying a ticket to. This is the inevitability of the sad place this movie ends. But you're like starting off with like, I'm watching the guy fucking like talking to himself, pacing back and forth after he's done it.
Shot pornographically, in my opinion. I think, Pauline Kael said about A Clockwork Orange, she called it prurient. She said it was pornography because it was trying to elicit something very specific out of a viewer. And she also said that the only pain the viewer ever sees is Alex's in A Clockwork Orange. And I think that that's similar with this movie. Is I think the only sympathy that you see from the filmmaker is with Paul Snider. And I think that those opening scenes, like, why did he have to cut his push-ups and sit-ups on the beat like he was dancing?
Right.
It's gross.
It's the Fosse thing. It's the Fosse thing.
Yeah.
But it's not Paul Snider doing his thing on Broadway playing, is it?
No.
But there's even the whole Fosse isolation of the body parts thing, right? And his choreography.
But whose body parts
translated.
Are they?
Well,
exactly.
Sure. I mean, this is the thing,
right?
But like that whole technique of his, which then translates to film with the insert shots and the editing onto the specific parts and whatever. He's like reapplying it in this, where like the scene where they go to the Playboy Mansion, and he does it every time a guy runs his hand up a woman's back. And it's the same kind of thing of what you're talking about.
Imagine that, like, Dylan Klebold and Eric, what's his name, from Columbine, cocking their guns in rhythm to, a jazzy number and showing it in close-up. How dare you artify this as though it is art?
This is the question about any
violence.
Of these movies, right? Like, even about a movie like Schindler's List or whatever. It's like, can we point a camera at this? Like, can you make this something that's also entertaining? It's so hard.
Point a camera at it, but giving it a music video feel.
Well, that's what you're talking about. Kale calls it his bag of tricks, right? Like, him resorting to his
right.
His
that he's making it all jazzy.
But you wouldn't call it that if he were making cabaret, or even, he had turned his attention to great artists.
Yes.
He had sort of canonized Lenny Bruce and himself, which, obviously is what it is. Right. And Liza Minnelli, and now he is really interested in this like disgusting low IQ murderer.
I mean, this is my problem with the movie. Is like I like Paul Snider to me just seems like a problem. Like I can't get into his headspace at all because there's no beginning with him. Like from the moment he enters, you're just like, well, she should get as far away from this person
and everyone
as possible.
immediately clocks it. It's the thing that everyone says when they meet him, other than her.
And even if the movie isn't opening with her murder and isn't about the murder he carried, you're just sort of like, well, I mean,
it's Get Out.
It doesn't even have the unpredictability of of a driller killer or a
that's the
or
thing.
a Joker where you're like,
it does feel like an exploitation movie.
It is an exploitation movie.
and so that's how you then have to start engaging with it. But then, when did she die? 1980?
Stratton?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
this happened. The movie's very
1980. This movie's only 3 years later. Like,
Yeah.
I can only imagine how unsettling that must have felt in
Yeah.
1983. Because to me, this is a story. Like, I was not alive when this happened.
I mean, there was a Jamie Lee Curtis TV
There is.
movie.
Yeah, no, there had already been a TV movie, which I imagine is less, garish simply because it was a television movie.
Well, you
right?
can't
Like,
see your tits.
It's
Yes.
probably just a lot less.
Yes, and I think it's a little bit more of sort of just like the Dorothy Stratton life story,
right.
whereas and the killing of a playmate is sort of
Death of a
The
Planet.
Peter
Death of a
Bogdanovich
Playmate. It's Death of a
story.
Planet, killing of a unicorn, right? I keep on getting the two titles
Yes.
confused. The original article
Mhm.
is so much about like the differing viewpoints of the thing, right?
I think it is an investigation into this. I don't even like to say the word toxic because it sounds so
Yeah.
trendy, but
No, but
this
you're right.
violent relationship.
Yes.
Yes, but
Yes.
also just the weird culture of Playboy and the mansion and all that.
Certainly,
like
yes.
all,
But also
all of that.
there were these 3 different unhealthy relationships in her life that took different forms.
And let's add Fosse as the 4th.
Well, Fosse then, right, when he acquires the article,
Yes,
becomes the 4th.
Absolutely.
That even in her death, there was this weird
Obsession
thing.
with her fucking tits, which I saw more in this movie than anything in her head.
There's also, there's also the thing of just like all these people go like, you don't understand. She had this star. She was going to be Judy Holliday. She was
Yeah.
going to be Carol
Right.
Lombard,
Right.
right?
Okay.
And it is this thing where I'm just like, well, first off, look, we never got a chance to find out, right? She was someone with no acting background who got put in 3 movies and then was murdered senselessly. So like, there's not really.
And she seemed like she was a kind person.
She seemed like she was a kind person, but whenever anyone talked about her, it just felt like, God, you are projecting so much onto a child. It's the thing I find so sort of upsetting about this entire story is that she was just this figure that everyone looked at and they were just like, have you seen anything like this before?
Mhm.
And part of it even, I think what this movie does get at well is that so much of what people are reacting to and going like, holy shit, this girl's a star, is her like naivete,
Mhm.
her like sort of like, oh geez, sorry.
Yep.
Like the things she doesn't know and
She's
like
a
her
child.
embarrassing. She's a
The
child.
mind of a child and the
She's-
body of a beautiful young woman.
Right. And people are like, this is unbelievable. How is
You
this
will
possible?
never reconcile these two realities. When I
Right.
tell you, your mind's going to explode.
You won't believe this fucking person.
Mhm. Yeah, it's called a 19-year-old.
Right. And that's the thing. When I like watch real interviews with her or watch her in these movies, I'm like, that's a 19-year-old who maybe would have gone on to become an interesting performer.
Mhm.
Sure. It's like Sharon Tate as well. I mean, Sharon Tate hadn't been in more movies, but there's also people get obsessed with the sort of like, oh, but what if? Like, oh, it was just beginning for her, and there's a whole career that didn't
But also,
happen.
all those guys weren't saying what if. They were like, it was there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well,
The thing was there.
Beauty is very beguiling.
and beauty and dying in insane circumstances.
Yeah.
Though. Like, it'll you're just like, well, no.
But here's the
this
thing.
is-
I keep going back to these are not insane circumstances. Happens to women every day.
It's very.
They're
It's very
murdered.
true.
They're murdered by
the
men who feel
circumstances-
rejected and cannot handle that.
The circumstances are not insane. Her like
The Manson murders were kind of were insane.
Those,
Yeah,
those
are more
are
insane.
insane.
Those
But,
are more insane.
the circumstances are definitely not insane, but the media circus around it is. Although we can talk
Absolutely.
about white women syndrome, like white victim, like the thing that obviously the media loves to glom onto that kind of a story.
Dead blondes.
And like I
Yeah.
remember when I worked at People magazine a zillion years ago when I was a baby, and I would like comb through European news looking for stories to suggest to People like you could just tell them salivating whenever it
Yeah.
was some kind of like young woman murdered, like in weird circumstances in Europe. And people would just immediately just be like, "Oh, well, we know what that is."
Well,
Like, we
we're
know how to turn
also
that
we're
into-
at like once again culturally at an all-time high of being obsessed with these stories and endlessly adapting these stories. Like all these stories are not only being adapted again, but they're being adapted as like fucking 10-hour podcasts and TV
Well,
shows,
sure,
like
right.
drawn out, stretched out with what I think often feels like a very performative empathy.
Yeah,
and
right. I
think
don't listen to those things, but I know
Right.
they're right. They're all out there, right?
But it's a conversation I feel like we keep on having of sort of just like, is this whole thing fucked up? Do we keep on turning this into entertainment to tell ourselves, God, I'm so invested in the tragedy of this person and these people. But think about the people who actually had to live through this, continue to live through this. The way that the narrative is being rewritten by people with other interests, it's a complicated fucking thing. I think the reason I find this film powerful, and I'm choosing that word specifically because it's like the movie undeniably has this power to it. Whether it's a really ugly, harmful, evil power or not is, a debate. But like, I feel like this is one of the only sort of true crime movies, if I can call it that, that feels somewhat cognizant of how ugly and fucked up the entire cycle of the thing is. Now, it's the Fosse thing where it's like this guy fucking hates himself. He knows he's a piece of shit, right? All these movies are about how he feels unlovable.
Right.
It's about him.
Disgusting. It's about him.
He's pouring at least some part of himself into these stories. Yes. Yeah.
Right. And I think the thing that always has made Fosse interesting to me as a filmmaker is, unlike a lot of other people who do this, where at the end they want you to find them a little bit cute or forgive them or let themselves off the hook, right? Fosse wants to kill himself by the end of the movie. Like, he really is just like, and now I've explained all my sins to you. Please let me die. Please. Please let me die. Sure. I want no forgiveness, right? I think this is a movie that is somewhat, even if not consciously, and I agree with everything you're saying of what is deeply fucked up about the existence of this movie, about the way he chooses to depict the story, the methods through which he went to adapting this story, all of that. I think this movie is somewhat, even unconsciously, in conversation with the fact that the very act of trying to do this is fucked up. And that everything surrounding this entire...
Of making this.
Yeah, like just the whole thing is evil from the get-go. That every person's reaction to this girl is evil, That everything is wrong.
And as she rises in Hollywood, there's no escape from the evil. It's just new layers of whatever. Like, the industry is, going to crush her or manipulate her or destroy her in some way or another way.
And you have this final line in the interview where it's like, what's it like?
Saviors.
And she's like, you go to the airport and people come up to you. And it's like sweet, but it's so depressing because you're like, she didn't really ever care about any of this. At the end of the day, it was his pursuit of, don't you understand, fame's important, money's important, all this sort of shit, right? The final scene where she tries to end the marriage, she's like, I'll give you $7,000, half of what I have. And you're like, she has $14,000 for how much they've been putting her through the fucking ringer,
right?
Which may or may not be historically accurate,
sure.
but in the story, yes,
right.
But even from the idea,
she said, "Let's go back home." Yeah.
But we all know people like this, where it's like you're in showbiz, you're working constantly, and you're like, they actually haven't gotten paid. They're just being put on the fucking factory line for 5 years, and they're living out of a suitcase, and they're being pushed from one thing to the other.
Like the Backstreet Boys getting $10 a day for their lunches or whatever, when playing to a million.
Well, she was living with Bogdanovich at the time.
By the end, like by the end of her life, yes, her short life. Bob Fosse wants Melanie Griffith. That's his first choice.
Okay.
He saw Body Double. He was jealous as hell, I bet.
I mean, Body Double is right around. I'm trying to think. No, Body Double's the year later. So what is Melanie Griffith popping for him in?
Night Moves?
She is in Night Moves, and that's like the mid 70s, obviously. Roar. Yeah, I don't know.
Body Double was after, huh?
Yeah, Body Double's right after, and that, of course, is her kind of comeback.
God, he must have been so jealous of that.
Yeah,
because that's right. That's the sort of like Hollywood prurient. This is a horrible place, but it's also like a fun, watchable,
there's a point to
crazy
that movie
with a point of view. Sure, yes, okay.
But like, I mean, Fosse, for better or worse, I don't think could view things as pulp. He was just like, this is miserable, and we have to sit in this misery. Melanie Griffith, I think, not to just invoke more darkness, but also like when Melanie Griffith is 16 years old, she's married to Don Johnson. He does a Playboy shoot of her as like a teenage girl, child bride.
Yeah, she's a teenager.
Right. The parallels there are a little bit uncomfortable. Obviously, Don Johnson.
Oh my God.
Is not Paul Snider, but there are weird parallels. Don John is also not Paul Snider, for the record. Don John just likes his body.
Right. Don John, he likes what does he like? His girls, car, his gym, his whatever. Gym. Mariel Hemingway, as everyone knows, like, I feel like that's the most famous thing about this movie, right? She like campaigned for the role. Yeah. She was like, it's got to be me. She eventually gets herself in front of Fosse. Fosse's like, you're not a voluptuous person. She famously got a boob job.
Yeah.
She's always said like, oh, it wasn't for the movie or anything like that. whatever. Do with that what you will.
Her bare breasts are on screen more than her point of view.
She is nude in the film quite often. Bob Fosse tries to sleep with her the entire time he's making the movie, which seems to be the Bob Fosse experience, basically.
Don't do it.
Although they did not get together at all. She rebuffed him. But she says that he was essentially constantly an emotional pest. Yes. Ben's like, why are we doing
We're all
this?
just collapsing here.
He's like directing her in a scene where a director is manipulating her into having sex with him.
Did Hugh Hefner rape her in the jacuzzi is a question, and
right, that's part of it, right, which they don't get to in this movie because they're afraid of Hefner, suing them as well, I think.
Hefner's really minimized in this story. I think
I think he's deified.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. He is basically just like a talking head god man who comes in. Yeah.
Right.
It's weird to see him not shriveled up. That's how I've always known him. It's like a weird little old raisin.
Yeah.
Yeah, just desiccated by the time I was a kid. And you were just like, it's just like this
some
creepy old
weird,
man who's there.
old,
right.
Even on Playboy
Sex
After
freak
Dark,
guy.
he was a troll.
Yeah. Just put pants on, guy.
The studio wants Richard Gere. And this is after American Gigolo, I think.
Okay.
Right? Richard Gere is like a major heartthrob at this point.
Yeah.
Fosse wants Robert De Niro. You mentioned Pumpkin.
Yep, he would have been better.
Probably understands like this guy can go places, right?
And King of Comedy has happened at this point, right?
Yeah, because King of Comedy is 80, right?
81?
82. Sorry.
82. Okay.
So not yet.
No, it has happened because this movie's 80, but maybe not. Maybe it hasn't come out. Yeah, this is all very close because this movie comes out in 83.
Pumpkin, the better choice for him if you're going to do one of these lonely mustachioed.
But it's compensating for the lack of the writing. Ultimately, you're asking an actor to do a job you didn't on the page, I think.
Yeah.
He asks Hemingway to try and like seduce Robert De Niro to like convince him of the role. Hemingway's like, no, thank you. And Hemingway beyond that says just like she perceived that like De Niro rebuffing Fosse just took so hard. Like this guy's, this great actor doesn't think I'm anybody.
Dorothy Stratton story.
Yes. When will they ever get?
Maybe they will recover one day.
And then they get Roberts into whatever. He convinces Eric Roberts to do it. But like you said, Julie, like he has to convince him. I mean, like, I don't obviously
Eric Roberts wasn't that stupid. He knew that taking this role was a bad idea.
He certainly
was resistant to it.
Resistant and suspicious. I mean, obviously it is a meaty role, but like I certainly would be like, no, there's no way anyone will be able to look at me after I like do a movie like this.
Do a pass on the script, man. Don't Dirk Digglerify me unless there's anything likable about me.
It's Bob Fosse. He's made 4 movies. 3 of them have been nominated for Best Picture. Like,
the script needs work. Patty was wrong. There are notes.
Well, Patty said no notes.
Have you seen The Hospital?
Patty was also probably saying, let me die.
Yeah,
please do. Get off my
Pass
fucking
the
back.
corned beef sandwich.
Yeah.
Fosse's like, start talking like him, start dressing like him, get into this guy's head. And I don't know, it seems creepy. Sam Shepard was the first choice to play Hugh Hefner, which would be great. He makes a lot of sense, like as a Hefner type.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen. Fosse wants Harry Dean Stanton. Hugh Hefner was like, if you cast Harry Dean Stanton as me, I will not let you like use the Playboy like archives or the mansions or anything like that. So Cliff Robertson is the compromise.
I mean,
Harry Dean Stanton too weird looking is my assumption. In Hugh Hefner's eyes.
The problem is that in terms of screen energy, there's just something too fucking grandfatherly about Cliff Robertson.
Well, that's the notion, is that he was the patriarch, who was the kind,
right.
he's
The
like the Lorne Michaels
dad.
of the Playboy universe.
Right, yes.
And they shoot in Vancouver and Los Angeles. It's a horrible shoot. No one has a good time.
No one had a good time making this movie?
No, it's a huge bummer.
It would be bad if they did.
That's true. You know what? At least they suffered.
Right. Oh, yeah. It was a pleasant time. We were all eating croissants all day. No. In the middle of the shoot, Fosse calls Anne Ranking and says, I'm living in a world where no one wants to live. I'm living in this world. Now we got to get to this spot. We got to get to the murder. And I really don't want these people. I really like these people. I don't want to see them die. Sounds like Bob Fosse was kind of going insane making this movie.
Yeah.
And at one point, Cliff Robertson says, he turned to Cliff Robertson and he said, he's going to kill her and I don't know how to stop him. We have to do something. So that's the vibes. It's really, really like nasty.
You read that and it's confounding that he then chose to. I don't know what the fucking shooting order was, right?
They shot it in sequence, basically.
But would they have shot the murder stuff
last?
Since that's wraparound? Or would they have shot
I
believe
think they
it was
shot.
last.
I think they shot that last. I think they were.
They had to break into that house.
Well, yes. But hearing that, I'm surprised he didn't change his plans and go, you know what? Maybe we don't want to show this on screen in any way, even sort of fractured.
Yeah, you didn't want to show the BDSM bench he made to rape her anally after he'd already murdered her.
Right.
You don't want to show that right before the credits come up and dedicate it to Patty Chayefsky.
Right.
Why would partygoers laugh at something like that? That doesn't seem like a chill or fun. Like, I would be concerned. I would be worried.
Yeah,
it's. I suppose it's sort of the nervous, laughter, right?
I also think this is the whole world is bad movie.
Right.
Yeah. 100%. Everyone's bad.
Evil world.
Okay. Yeah.
No one liked Derek Roberts' vibes on the set.
Oh, wow.
People complained about him constantly. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, is he too in the character or is he just Derek Roberts and he's a pain in the ass? Mariel Hemingway said, he was a totally nice guy until they started shooting. And then he was like bad vibes. Everything about this, as our researcher said, worst vibes on research ever. Everything is bad. Roberts says the whole thing made me sad. I was pathetically unhappy the entire time. And Sven Nykvist shoots it. So it's Fosse working with a great cinematographer, but not someone he knows. Not his usual guy.
Sure.
So he's bringing in this kind of European master.
Right.
And as Julie pointed out, they have this whole idea of this sort of rhythmic staccato musical sort of presentation
worst soundtrack
of things.
Ever.
Yes.
This is Burns who
Big Shot, 2 Billy Joel song, one of which is a cover from a prom singer, I believe.
Right.
The other's Big Shot.
Right. They do Don't Go Changing, the try please. What's it? Just the Way You Are.
Dancing to in
right.
prom.
They do that at the prom, and then and
then there's what is that one? Is it Sing 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 when he's like dun 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 when she's roller skating?
That one, that song, whatever that song is, we all know that music.
But the list is insane. And then what's his name? Ralph Burns, who did the score for this and had won the Oscar for the last 2 Fosse movies,
right?
And essentially creates 2 Stings. There's that.
And there's the creeping dread, score.
Whenever that truly makes my skin crawl. Whenever that plays.
Well, you know what it's leading to. You saw it before the credits. Yeah.
Well, yes, but also I do think musically it is upsetting.
Dread,
even if you isolate that. If you played this in this room right now, I'd start scratching myself, I think.
This story doesn't deserve this bag of tricks.
Up on Cripple Creek, I'm just looking at the other weird things. Sookie Sookie by Steppenwolf, Let the Good Times Roll. Do you think I'm sexy by Rod Stewart? Yeah. YMCA.
The worst.
Just the Way You Are. Yeah.
Flush it down the toilet.
Yeah. I almost jock jams adjacent.
Yeah.
They start screening this movie and the test screenings go very poorly.
Really?
People walk out. Yeah. Bob Fosse refuses to make any changes, thinking he has made his best film. Wow. Alan Ladd sees the film and is like, this one's not going to be a hit. And it comes out, it's positioned for awards, right? It comes out in limited release in November. And it gets mixed to bad reviews. Although there are some like Roger Ebert who liked it. There were some people who connected with it. Hugh Hefner thought it was disgusting the way it linked sex to violence. He didn't like the intercutting of the photo sessions with the murder scene, things like that. Peter Bogdanovich obviously just writes a whole poison pill book about how much he hated it. And the movie comes out and is a huge flop and is despised. And Bobby Fosse doesn't make another movie. And then he dies. And it feels like this thing of like Lynn was on our All That Jazz episode. And he was so excited. And he was like, God bless you on Star 80, though. I don't know how that's going to go.
He also said he hadn't seen it.
It's such a bum note to end on. Yes, he's never seen it.
It is fascinating to me that, 'cause you were talking about Bob Fosse being undersung as a director, right?
Absolutely.
And we announced that we were doing this miniseries. And I saw a lot of our fans and a lot of, let's say, the more, sometimes the fans of ours who run more snobbish or film snobbish, right?
Or film bros.
Sure.
Who think of him as...
Well, no, this is what was interesting. A lot of them were saying, this is so exciting. What a cool pick.
Finally.
Cool of them to pick someone off the beaten path. I've never seen any of these movies. What a good excuse to finally see them. Right, and that's what I was sort of surprised by was how many of these people were sort of saying, I know that's a blind spot. I appreciate that I'm now going to have an impetus to watch all these movies, right? But the people who had seen Fosse movies, even, most of them were like, obviously the one I haven't seen is Star 80 because I can't put myself through that. And then the smaller section of people who were Fosse fans had seen Star 80 were like, good luck, no idea how you fucking do an episode on that one.
Mm-hmm.
It does just feel like a movie that is still radioactive.
Haunted.
Yeah. Haunted.
Yeah, I don't know. Right.
I mean, there's the whole, obviously, like, there's, I don't even know how to touch this, but the Mariel Hemingway element of it as well. When you have like this and Manhattan on opposite sides of each other, right? And they're two movies that are essentially about the same basic phenomenon, but in very, very different ways. One that is very much romanticized and fictionalized and, you know, is still kind of like, is using the tricks of filmmaking to make people buy into something.
Yeah, Manhattan, he is like selling you on like, no, this is what I should be doing.
Right,
I should be dating a teenager.
Gershwin, and I'm giving you beautiful.
Right. You're
like,
supposed to be swooning at the end of this.
She actually decided at one point to go somewhere and do something in that movie.
Right, and then the end of the movie is like, thank God she's not going to do that. She's going to hang out with Woody Allen. Like, it's great.
But it is fascinating to me that like that movie's existence is sort of about the same thing this movie is about.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, minus the murder, you know?
Old guys being disgusting towards young, beautiful women.
Right, just seeing a child and going like, I need to explain to everyone
fascinating.
Why you're the most important thing in the world.
And I feel like after this movie, her career just kind of goes nowhere. She doesn't make a movie for kind of a couple of years, and the movie she does make is called Creator. I don't know them, you know. And then The Mean Season.
Is that the Peter O'Toole movie?
Creator is the Peter O'Toole movie, yeah.
Does she do a run on Ellen? Doesn't she do like a 90s sitcom run?
Roseanne? She did a couple episodes on?
Roseanne, yes.
I mean, it's not like she disappeared from anything. And she was in that TV show Civil Wars that was kind of a hit. Like, I think she got maybe like a Golden Globe nomination for it or something, you know, like in the early 90s. But that's back when if you're a movie actor going to TV, it's sort of like, it's a step down.
It's a concession.
Seen as, right.
She's made a couple documentaries now, right? I know she did a documentary about sort of the history of depression in her family and trying to fight against suicide.
Yeah, and
which I heard is very good.
It's called My Suicide. I'm not sure. But she's also done movies about yoga and stuff, right? She's like very into all that world, and so that's what
she's
a
does. Survivor,
running from crazy. That's the documentary about her.
She
family.
She is. And by the way, when she does interviews today, she speaks about all of this work and this period of her life with a thankfully, you know, like thank God, a really kind of sound perspective. Feels like she has really processed a lot of it in the healthiest way possible. But it is one of those things to just be like, Jesus fucking Christ, for like 6 years, all this shit was thrown on me.
And it was all okay.
Yeah.
And she's in that movie Personal Best in between Manhattan and Star 80. But it's sort of like a landmark movie. Like
that's kind of the one time she got to make like a real Mariel Hemingway movie.
Yeah.
Where she is the protagonist.
It's not a perfect movie, but like it's like one of the first Hollywood movies to have a lesbian relationship in it. And
is that Robert Town?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it made her like a sort of LGBT icon.
Yes.
And she played like gay characters in various things.
Because on Roseanne, I think, isn't that the thing that her character was like kind of the first major recurring lesbian character on primetime television, I think, on Roseanne. Maybe my stats
And she said, like, I'm not gay, but I liked that I became this kind of like figure of, you know, whatever.
But look, also, I mean, kind of makes sense that she, not to project, pivots in her career and is like, I no longer want my characters to be defined by how much men are obsessed with them. You know, that she's like, I will become an ally to the lesbian community. It makes a lot of sense.
It can't be worse.
Yeah.
I like Mariel Hemingway in everything I've ever seen her in, pretty much. I just haven't seen her in a lot of stuff.
No.
I've seen her in this in Manhattan, and probably saw those Roseanne episodes back in the day. But like, you know,
and Personal Best is good. Yeah,
Personal Best is good. I have seen Personal Best. Apparently, she did some Becker. Becker's a good show. Julie Becker?
What? Never seen it.
Becker, Ted Danson. He's a mean doctor.
My Star 80. That Lynn hasn't seen Star 80. I haven't seen Becker.
You haven't seen Becker.
You'll have to make sense of it.
It's the only jewel in the Danson crown. You haven't. I do feel like Becker is one of those shows where if there was a streaming deal tomorrow and all of Becker went up on Amazon Freevee or some shit,
the world would be healed.
The world would be healed, and we would just get all these vulture think pieces of like rediscovering Becker, the greatest.
I'm ready.
Is Becker the high point of American television? I just feel like, I'm not saying this from experience,
Wow, Becker is truly hard to stream.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a couple seasons on Pluto TV. That's it.
But in my mind's eye, when I think back to the handful of Becker episodes I've seen, when I replay them in my head, I'm like, if I watched that today, I would maybe argue to give that a Peabody.
Yeah, Becker rules.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. I watched Becker. It was
Congratulations.
good. I'm pro Becker.
Yeah.
I'm not being ironic here.
I'm not either.
He was a Bronx doctor. He was grumpy.
Right.
He would go to a diner. That was the show.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the whole show.
Shawnee Smith?
Who's that?
She was on Becker.
Oh, Shawnee Smith. That's
Yeah.
why he said Johnny Smith.
No.
Yeah, Shawnee Smith.
Right.
Alex Farrell from Terry Farrell from Star Trek.
Yeah.
Alex Desert
Yes.
from Swingers.
Yes. Becker. Anyway, back to Star Rating.
Wow, there's no energy for Becker in this room. I'm sorry.
I'm giving you
I
energy.
think you have a lot of energy.
I want to rewatch Becker.
Well, you can't. You'd have to buy the DVDs. I think you'd have to buy.
Has it even been released on DVD?
I think
I don't know it has.
I think you can get some Becker DVDs.
Is there a Shout Factory complete Becker?
Yes, $37
for the whole.
We can't talk about Becker
okay,
anymore.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
She's stopping it. 5 seasons.
I'm shutting it down.
37.
I appreciate it.
I'll place an order. David.
What's up?
David.
What's up?
When the weather is warm, you can't help but get out and explore.
True. That's true. I mean, unless it's too warm.
It's important to refresh and refuel after a long summer getaway.
I know. Whether you're planning for the next big summer trip or recovering from one, it's important to give your body the fuel it needs to feel its best.
I don't know if you feel this way. I feel like it's been so hot everywhere. I don't know if you've been reading this in the news.
It's been a bit of a long, hot summer. That's
planets
true.
on fire. I feel like everyone's just going like, I got to get somewhere else. It's got to be better somewhere else.
Yeah,
right?
sure. Right.
I got to get away. It's brutal. It's brutal here. Maybe the solution is getting away. Maybe it's getting something better inside your body.
Well, with Splendid Spoon, you can enjoy a clean, delicious, stress-free meal in just minutes, and it takes the work out of eating healthy because, like you're saying, it delivers ready-to-eat plant-based meals, smoothies, and juices right to your door.
David, am I mistaken in believing that you just got a big old box of Splendid Spoon
everything
delivered to your doorstep?
Tell
me what
everything.
you got. Tell me what you got.
Well, because they've got the plant-based meals, like they said, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got these very nice meal kits that you can work, that are like whole recipes. But then I got some smoothies. Okay. I got some juices. I got some grain bowls. I got some soups. I got some noodle bowls. They actually really loaded me up. It was pretty nice.
David, can I ask you some quick questions?
Yeah.
How did Splendid Spoon fit into your daily routine?
Basically saves you time. Like, it's either quick snacks that you can try.
Sure.
Or it's like quick meals that you can make that are really healthy.
Well, hold on. Let me scratch off question number 2. Did it save you time?
Yeah.
What was your favorite dish? Did one jump out at you?
Well, I really liked the smoothies in general, I'll say. But the rice bowls, got a coconut curry rice bowl, kale, cashews, really good. Very summer appropriate, not too hot.
Yeah.
Kind of like vegetable and summery. Had a good smoothie. I'm a big mango person. The mango guava smoothie was really good.
David, I'm going to ask you to answer this next question with radical honesty because the answer might make you sound like a fool.
Okay, but remember that I'm very hungry and I actually totally want to wrap this up.
I want to eat some Splendid Spoon.
Yep.
David, I speak from the present tense. Even if this answer makes the old version of you sound like a fool, were you surprised by how much flavor a plant-based meal could have?
A little surprised.
Yeah, that old idiot didn't know.
It sounds, like it could be a little plant-based. Oh, wait a second. But no, it's really good stuff. And you feel really nice. It's, easy on the old tummy. Easy to digest.
Easy on the old tum-tum.
Gives you some energy. And more importantly, it fits in any schedule. There's a meal plan for everyone. It's all plant-based, gluten-free, GMO-free. 50
choices, constantly rotating menu. There are always new choices of dishes to try.
So stay well-fueled this summer with Splendid Spoon. Get started today and save on an entire week of ready-made plant-based meals. Just go to splendidspoon.com/check for $50 off your first box when you subscribe. That's $50 off at splendidspoon.com/check.
I'm just thinking about what an idiot you were thinking that plant-based meals couldn't taste that good.
What a fool I am.
What a fool you were.
Sorry. Well, okay, so back to Star 80, Ben. What did you think of Star 80?
Yeah, Ben.
Stinks! Hated it. Bummed me out. Watched it this morning. It's the worst day to start your day.
Not a great way to start your day. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, Julie, you...
Okay, wait. I do have one major thought, though.
Okay, sorry.
Stabbing someone in the butt as revenge.
With?
A little ass knife.
Nope.
At the prom?
The filing end of a nail clipper.
Oh, that's what it was?
It's an incredibly bizarre move.
Yeah, it's so weird and specific.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Okay.
That's a standout moment.
This is when he takes her to prom, and she had mentioned that a football player was lousy to her. And
said she was bad at sex.
Yeah, and he does that, and you're like, get away from this person. I mean, that's just what I'm thinking the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Julie, like, how many times have you seen Star? Like,
this was only my This was my
like,
second
how
time.
often are you going to revisit this movie? Yes. Did you see it the first time when it was at the Quad?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I did, and it was just heartbreaking to see one of your favorite painters decide to, spend their last years working on this, beautiful portrait of like John Wayne Gacy.
Well, it's also like,
wow, you really got his eyes right. Really got that blue. I mean,
I pretty much agree with all of your criticisms on this movie.
And as far as it being powerful, I would just add, so is pornography, and so is the Zapruder footage.
Very, very, very true.
But is it a great film?
I don't know. I constantly wrestle with it. The first time I watched it, I was just so fucking affected by it. And there is the sort of just the Fosse construction I am so in love with. Like, I do like the way he thought about film. You know?
It was I think that the issue,
it's what you're saying, used to what ends.
Right. And I think when you think about the written and direct, I think that so much of what is horrible about this is in the writing, because we know he could make and then you think about, Mr. Arthur contributing and all that jazz, and having another, and him respecting writers, but not necessarily being the one to have that auteur credit when I don't think he was capable of
I agree with that. I think this one was much better directed than it is written,
and it's the only movie he has the writer director credit. Like, he wrote all that jazz, like you said. He co-wrote, but this is the only written and directed by Bob Fosse movie.
Just like, not to be pat about it, this movie probably shouldn't have been written by a man. Like, it's what you're saying, but just there's no sort of a glimpse into her point of view, her interiority, any of that. It's just a thing.
American Psycho has 2 female voices behind it, and is therefore such an insightful and even funny critique of, like, I mean, it's almost like the reductress version of Body Double in a way.
That's the perfect example, but it's a similar thing where for so long people were like, you can't fucking make the American Psycho movie. That's irresponsible.
Unfilmable.
Right.
It's like,
how can you put that on screen?
It's if you drag Bret Easton Ellis across the coals, it's actually really fun.
Right.
Yeah.
It's actually a lot of, we got the rights to his story, and we made him look like an asshole. Right. That's a win-win.
Right. But you think about how close we came to getting, like, Oliver Stone, DiCaprio, American Psycho, and what a fucking nightmare that would have been.
And I think it would have been
somewhat similar to this. Yeah.
Yeah. And frankly, at least, at least Patrick Bateman was on the movie poster. We have, the victim, and I don't even want the victim. We get to still jerk off to her gauzy beauty.
Right. The poster is essentially just a pinup.
It's
her biting a flower.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We don't, even though it's not about her, but we still get
you're selling the sex
use her. I mean,
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I remember, I think it was The Onion last week when Roe v. Wade was overturned, saying that women are classified as service animals now by the Supreme Court. And I do think that it's funny because they're called playmates in the Playboy world. They're called pets in Penthouse.
Right.
I think that is absolutely, they are a source of decorative pleasure. You see the other women in Hugh Hefner's world playing pinball at like 2 p.m, having like a catered lunch. There's joking about their diets.
It's like pets. It's people who have like show dogs.
There's the moment where she, puts the check down wrong or whatever, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to do it that way," and then she does the bunny dip.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yeah. And he is, Hugh Hefner is benevolent in offering her an apartment and a job at one of the clubs, and we see people act towards her the way that Paul Snider had acted towards his, car show models. And I don't believe Fosse is so insincere at wanting to expose sexism because he makes it so sexy.
Sure.
That I'm sick to my stomach, not mentally, but just physically. And it's sort of, this is an appalling, what a bummer of a movie. And I think it is reacting to the fact that like your sympathy with her is like, gosh, isn't it awful? Someone really killed this Bijan Frise.
I think there's this thing of, I mean, the whole thing of.
Did you hear the story? They killed this Bijan Frise. Really? Who? What was he like?
Well, sure. I think there's this whole thing that's interesting about Fosse making this film essentially when he feels like he's on borrowed time, right? And a lot of people who have sort of an extra chapter to their life that they did not think they were going to have talk about it with a certain sense of enlightenment.
Reflecting on his own life, you mean?
I'm not talking about with Fosse, right?
Oh, I see.
I mean, I'm going to go on a quick side tangent here, but I just have no better way to say this because I'm done with the one thing I'm going to say, okay?
What is it?
The George Lucas talk show. The pandemic, we got hyperfixated on Arliss and then started this thing where every week we'd watch an entire season of Arliss and we'd get people from Arliss, and Robert Wool would come on the stream with us and stay on for like 2 hours. And I spent more time talking to Robert Wool during the first year of the pandemic than my parents probably.
Right.
Only ever as Watto. It was a very, very bizarre relationship where I felt like, some weird attachment without ever having a conversation with him as myself. Then last year, I had my fucking health problems and I need my gallbladder taken out, and then there were problems with my liver, and the surgery was delayed, and I was fucking suffering. And my friends, when I finally got my surgery, as a joke, as a present, but a kind of a bit, they paid to get a cameo from Robert Wool.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is the last thing I need right now.
I've gotten the full Robert Wool experience.
The only thing I've had an abundance of in the last 18 months of my life is conversations with Robert Wool over a screen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
But Robert Wool leaves this video for me. And not that he should, but I realized the second I start watching it, he doesn't know who I am. I've never spoken to him outside of the fucking
right.
He gets a cameo request for Griffin Newman. That means nothing to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he goes, hey, your friends, they said you have minor surgery. Isn't it funny? They always, if it's you, they say it's minor surgery. If they have surgery, it's major surgery. He's making his jokes, whatever, right?
Sure.
I'm like, this is sweet. This is fine. Why the fuck did you pay for this, Robert? What?
Give it to charity.
Right, exactly. And then he said this thing that really stuck with me, right?
Okay.
He's like, I was friends with Glenn Frey of the Eagles. I was really good friends with him. He had a really, really bad heart attack.
Famously chill guy.
Almost died, right?
Right.
And he comes back and I said, how do you feel now, Glenn? You got this extra time. And he said, Bobby, I'm going to live so well.
Okay.
I'm going to live so well. I thought I was enjoying life now, but I realized how close I came to losing it. And I'm just going to live so well, man. I'm just going to really, really enjoy my life.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob Fosse seems to have done the exact opposite thing after a near-death experience where he's like, what the fuck am I still doing here?
Well, yeah.
He totally soured.
Sure.
And like shriveled. And this movie like is made in hell.
Yes.
Right? Like it's like he's already dead.
Right.
And there was you saying like what a shame for him to like take this poison pill and end his career on this horrible note. And it's almost like he didn't know anything other than to just wallow in like not just
it doesn't change who you are. If you're having a death scare, it's not going to change your personality.
No, absolutely not. But it was almost like he resented that he was still alive. It wasn't like he gained any sense of appreciation.
It comes up with Fosse over and over again, where it's like he has this near-death experience, and he maybe for a month is like, well, I'm going to try and live healthier, and I'm going to try and not behave the way I behave. And then like a month later, he's like smoking cigarettes until they're burning in his mouth and squeezing every nurse's ass. And like, he's like, I cannot escape myself. Whether or not that is like he could have escaped himself, I have no idea. But certainly that is his opinion of himself. He's like, I'm stuck in Bob Fosse forever.
Like ticket to just. I think it's.
I'm not saying any of this as a defense. I'm just trying to interrogate how he ends up
him writing his own story. Is saying, well, I had this, extra life that was granted to me. It's just always all about him.
Yes.
It's just and maybe use this opportunity to like get to know like half of the population as human beings instead of, here we go, more grab ass. It's like maybe talk to, I don't know. The lack of sympathy for any female character in this is just really, really just shocking.
It's like you say, he has sympathy for her, but as this object that's like cursed.
The possession,
or whatever,
sociopaths like their
It's
like Trump with his daughter,
100%.
Yeah, or like it's like they're his assets, belongings, possessions, status symbols.
And then the thing I said about like him turning to Cliff Robertson and being like, somebody do something, where it's like, why are you recreating this like inevitable, like horrible thing in front of your eyes and then being horrified by it again? Like, and look, there's something about this that recurs in culture forever. We, like you said about true crime podcasts, but like, just we are certainly, or a slice of us are certainly completely transfixed by victims.
Yeah.
And like, we do deify them into these like sort of creepy ways.
Robert Greene's great movie Kate Plays Christine is like a really fascinating sort of meta documentary.
Not the car one.
Not the car one.
Correct.
Right.
No, like a very difficult watch, but it is a movie about an actor trying to play a tragic,
a person who killed herself
right.
on the news.
And you do sort of get into this whole thing of like, why are we compelled to these stories? Why do people feel like telling these stories is the ultimate height of like artistic achievement? If you can reclaim these profound tragedies, if you're an actor and you get to play the role of the victim or the culprit or whatever the fuck it is. Why are we so obsessed with these? And the whole added thing that comes up with like now, I think in particular with the true crime podcast, where people want to like solve them. Where it becomes an activity for listeners,
or finding meaning and applying
the meaning thing,
storytelling, tropes to things that are chaos.
Right.
Well, this happened because Sharon Tate was murdered because it was the end of the 60s. Like, we could say that.
Sure. It becomes part of a legendarium rather than being this weird incident.
Like she was a human being, and her preference would have been to stay alive.
Right.
She did not want to be a symbol, an interesting like fucking chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We could make sense of it culturally, and that's our, that is how our brains work, is to try to make sense
turn
out of
things into these narratives.
Chaos. Right. But I ultimately think it comes down to like, it got my dick hard, and my brain was firing in a really interesting way, because as a narcissist, I see myself in these men, and some of them are successful and some aren't. And they are, and isn't that interesting? And that ultimately
and he
thinks
is so negatively of himself or whatever. That he sees this man, and he's like, well, could this be me if I don't get a big break? Am I this guy? Like, and he finds that an interesting.
And that's really interesting to him. Yeah.
The other problem for me is that like they have to sand off Hefner and Bogdanovich so much, right? Hefner for fear of legal reasons, and Bogdanovich into a character that basically doesn't resemble, and it's just
bro code. Yes,
right. That you're really just hyperfixating on this one toxic relationship she had, in a way that like the killing of a playmate has like it's at least looking at the
the various
more
people who controlled her in various ways. Yes, sure.
Right, and that Playboy was sort of an acceptable, what would you call that in today's sort of content generating hub, right? That like Playboy was sort of its own studio. That
it was, and it also was like one of those systems. Like I had that joke about the Backstreet Boys. That is a real fact. They got $10 a day,
right.
Like where it's sort of like, well, you're a Playboy bunny, so enjoy that. You don't really have any freedom. You're not really going to make money, but you're safe here, like, right? And it's sort of like you're in our system.
What is different between what Hefner was offering her and what Paul Snider was offering her in his services as, quote unquote, a manager, right?
Right, not murdering her.
Well, yes, but I'm talking only before we get to that point.
A better deal.
Thank you. That's the thing. It's like there's a veneer of respectability. This is a system and a pipeline that at this point,
there's like
20 years in, we have accepted.
He was a better manager.
Right.
Yes.
And partially because of his fucking Playboy After Dark shit and whatever. It's like,
but you're right. Partially because he has a reputation. It's like, well, Hugh Hefner, he knows.
I loosen the cultural norms.
Introduce you to an agent, and he will get you on perhaps.
But it's
Love
the same
Boat.
thing. It's a kept woman thing.
Right. It's a breed. It's breeding. Animals as pets that are really beautiful.
At no point is anyone ever asking her what she wants to do. Right? Do you ever get a sense of what she enjoys or doesn't? It is the thing to go back to, I find so haunting about that final line where her only answer is like, I guess it's nice when people come up to you at the airport.
Yeah, it's nice to be loved, and it's nice to have attention from people that think you're beautiful and are friendly, and
which is the basic thing.
Appreciate you. Yes,
a 16-year-old girl who had not found any confidence in herself.
Yeah, that's something. That's like let's keep go. Let's brainstorm on Dorothy Stratton's character for a day.
Yes. Yeah. Because this is the final Fosse episode.
Mm-hmm.
And in a very different form than our episode on The Ward, which is not as toxic a film, but is a film that is a bummer on a career.
Right.
Which on what?
The Ward is John Carpenter's last movie, which is kind of a nothing movie that finishes his career with, unless he wants to make another movie, obviously. He is still alive, right?
Yes, he is still alive. I just, one of the reasons we asked you to come on this, because I didn't know what your opinions were, but I knew you had strong opinions on this movie and opinions on Fosse at large, whatever. But I'm just curious if there's anything else you want to discuss within the larger Fosse.
Oh, so much. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Okay. I'm so heartbroken that the way it looks in retrospect, that all that jazz was sort of like who he wanted to be, and maybe Starry was saying, well, this is who I really am. Maybe perhaps we can see that as like the penultimate and the ultimate. I don't think it's that simple. I also think that he has a track record of like giving women like wonderful things. I mean, I will always talk about one of the last shots in Cabaret when Sally Bowles she doesn't even decide to. It's just her job. She shows up for her job.
Yeah.
She thinks about her abortion for a minute. She thinks about her lover going on a train and that being the last she'll ever see of him, and that she has to show up to work because that's what she does. And that is what she chose. And before she goes on stage, she goes from thinking about it to not thinking about it. And you see her go into a smile, and then the curtain opens and she walks onto stage, and Fosse shot that in a medium. And I think that is so fucking brilliant. I think that he did not decide to go in close on Liza's beautiful, expressive, from the back of a fucking theater face. You could see her backstage at the Kit Kat Club, make that decision, and then go on stage and do her fucking job. I think the restraint and the confidence in his lead actor is so fortifying. And I do think that his attitude towards women, both personally and creatively, was complicated. If I had just seen this film, I would not think that. So it does break my heart to leave his legacy with such an ugly relic.
It is the thing that's so complicated about him, because he obviously had this very unhealthy dynamic with women and relationship to them. And I don't say what I'm about to say to excuse the previous thing, but it also is like he had these meaningful artistic collaborations.
Yes, with women he respected as collaborators, Rankin and Verdon, and so many of the dancers he worked with.
Right, and Minnelli and all these people. And it's like these lines were constantly getting crossed with him sexually. But it is that thing of, you're right, if you only watched this movie and read stories about Bob Fosse's personal life, you would come to a very different conclusion about him in totality. And I don't say this to excuse any of his behavior or condemn any of it either, right? He, like a lot of people, incredibly fucking complicated and, good and bad. But there is, I think, not just in the relationships he had as a collaborator with those people, but there's just like insight into Sally Bowles as a character, Charity as a character. I would even argue Honey Bruce, like,
absolutely,
who really is like Honey a co-lead of that movie. And Valerie Prine is given room to give such a fucking incredible performance. It is the thing that is lacking in this movie and is bizarre, because for how much the failings of this film fit into his failings as a human being, they had not been failings of his as a dramatist up until this point.
Absolutely. And not just as a dramatist, but as a creative, I hate the word hyphenate, but this auteur. Yeah. And I do think ultimately however he conducted himself as a private human is a part of the conversation, certainly. But ultimately I judge creative men by how they collaborate with, like, the Nichols and May of it all.
Yeah.
And, Monica Johnson writing with Albert Brooks. Like, I think about that as, do you really respect women that you will listen to us, not just as a director, lead actor, but the way he and Gwen Verdon, and the reason why it's Fosse Verdon is because he trusted her with his choreography and he trusted her with her direction. And those are the family jewels when it comes to an auteur's ego, and that he was able to let her in and let her speak to the performers and let her help him shape the thing that he is sort of that's where his identity really is is very special and interesting about him.
Yeah, we wouldn't be talking about him if he was not like an absolutely compelling, fascinating artist. Like,
right.
Yes,
but the process, letting you know, like hiring Tina to be head writer, that to me is very that's unusual, and especially in the 70s when you got all the credit.
Right. David and I were texting about this the other day, but the whole sort of cultural phenomenon of certain men who are young geniuses, especially in film,
sure,
get divorced.
And 70s film, which is,
Sure,
capital
absolutely.
S, capital
right.
F, yes.
But like Bogdanovich Polyplat's a key example of this, right? Get divorced and never fucking get back in the groove again, ever again. And it sort of reveals like, oh, that person was a collaborator, you know? Whether it was Marshall Lucas or Polly Platt, and they actually had
that was your marriage.
Designated roles on the film, but in addition, clearly were balancing out a lot more than just that in a Gwen Verdon way. Oh, you're credited as this, but really you're the other part of the brain.
But also not to be, because I also hate the backhanded, like, well, you're the one behind the man. No,
it's truly
she
like
was next to him, and everyone
thing.
knew it. Yeah.
Right, that's the thing. It's like a lot of these guys, I think, feel like, well, she was like a good whisper in my ear, rather than being like, we're the Coen brothers,
or Yoko and John.
Right, we're working in tandem. There's a thing that's missing, and whether it was somewhat selfish of him or not, there was something at least perceptive enough in Fosse to, when he had fucked up that marriage, being like, I can't make movies without her. And this is the movie that she probably has the least involvement.
Well, he knew that he couldn't make theater without her.
He couldn't really make anything without her well.
But the film, Fosse in film is a fascinating notion, because it's not like theater, because she was with him that night when he died, because she was like basically directing Sweet Charity,
right. Right. David,
Mm-hmm.
Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. I feel like I'm losing my mind saying this over and over again. When are you going to take the hint?
I know, because people spend hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, whereas Indeed is a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all.
No, but what I'm trying to tell you is that you can find great talent faster through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Why can't you get this through your head?
Instant Match, for example.
Yes.
Over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job.
Yeah,
That's
I know,
Indeed
David.
Data
I
US.
know that. But one of the things that I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy, because no other job site takes care of you like Indeed, because with Indeed, you only have to pay if an applicant meets your must-have requirements.
Yes, that's right. Puts you in control of what you pay. You set your must-have job requirements. You pay for the applications that meet them. There's a transparent flat fee per application. You can pause your job posting whenever you want.
David, Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring partner, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest 2019. Ever heard of them?
I'm going to do a call to action.
Please. It's about time you start carrying your own weight in these ad reads.
Indeed's doing something no other job site has done. Now with Indeed, businesses only pay for quality applications matching the sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/check to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/check, Indeed.com/check. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire, you need Indeed.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying this whole time.
Let me give you a little post-Star 80 Fosse.
Please.
Michael Jackson asks him to shoot the music video for Thriller, which is crazy.
Crazy.
But obviously, Michael Jackson considers Bob Fosse
like
the
Little
colossal.
Prince, it makes perfect sense.
Ooh, third episode in a row we've talked about this. I love that fucking
he
Little
looks
Prince
like he's
movie.
about to drop dead in the desert.
Insane. You cannot believe he's actually still alive.
No, it's
film
shocking. It's
Bob Fosse declines because he thinks Michael Jackson is weird. He is very bummed out that Star 80...
That's saying a lot.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, Bob Fosse's like, nah, I don't want to deal with you. Bob Fosse's really bummed out that Star 80 does horribly.
Mm-hmm.
He essentially retreats to the Hamptons, where he like kind of spends the rest of his life with this new girlfriend, Phoebe Younger.
Let's just clarify. Not only does horribly, but the reviews are like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you do this? It's a little like the Peeping Tom thing, where people are like, how dare you?
Yes.
Except Peeping Tom is like eventually kind of vindicated. And this people were like, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
Go sit in the corner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He is just sort of like moves in with Phoebe Unger. She said that he would just like show her movies and like talk about them. At a certain point, she was just casting his Oscar votes for him. They're just like sitting there being movie nerds together. He eventually comes back to try and save the choreography on Hal Prince's famous Broadway bomb Grind. And then he
What
works.
Is Grind?
It's a musical that went nowhere. But it's a Hal Prince musical, so it was a big deal. It's a portrait of an African-American burlesque house in Chicago in the 30s. I have never heard of this show.
Yeah. Sounds adjacent to dancing and the other stuff that was going on.
But it didn't do well. He works on Big Deal, which I mentioned before. He starts working on this revival of Sweet Charity with Gwen Verdon, and they're having a great time together, as much as Gwen Verdon's like, it's, same old Bob.
I mean, the thriller of it all is an interesting factoid, not just because of the Michael Jackson. It's like he could have gotten fabulous music videos made if he had cared to. I imagine he believed that was below him.
I'm sure he did, but you're right, because it's sort of like
you look at
you were only a couple years before those are basically like the coolest. It's right around when they are starting to become.
He should have done music video.
Yeah,
he should have. Also, I mean, that would have reinvigorated his career. It would have opened up a new chapter, but it's a chapter I think he probably would not have.
He was snotty about it, and then he put the worst soundtrack ever together for this. So,
but like, even if he had done the Thriller music video and it had blown up, and everyone was like, "Holy fucking shit!" I still think he would have been like, "I'm not gonna fucking do this again."
Well, yeah, he should have.
Yeah,
Big Deal seems like this sort of all-consuming thing that is like sort of the final thing that does him in. It's a huge flop.
Adapting fucking Italian movies into musicals.
He does
win
a
what
Tony.
Sweet Charity was.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
And
right. All that jazz is so 8.5 adjacent.
Yeah.
I know 9 is its own fucking literal musical.
Sure.
Right.
But he does like it as much as it's not a hit. He is like satisfied.
He's working. He's doing what he does.
And he wins a Tony, his final Tony for choreography. And then he starts working on a Walter Winchell movie that's going to star Robert De Niro, his big white whale at this point, clearly. So about, gossip column, sort of a Sweet Smell of Success kind of thing, right? And then he dies before it starts filming.
In Gwen Verdon's arms, outside the theater, opening night.
In the middle of the street.
A few other things that are late Fosse projects that are just fascinating to consider. Chicago, like we mentioned. Dreamgirls, the film adaptation of Dreamgirls, which fascinating to consider. A Broadway adaptation of Anne Rice's novel The Vampire Lestat, starring David Bowie and Mick Jagger.
I mean...
Sounds like a good time.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Good Morning Vietnam, which he was very interested in.
I saw that recently.
Yes.
I loved it. I thought
it's
it
good.
was so
I've never seen it. Yeah.
It is very kind and human,
It is.
and
it's a very sentimental movie.
You'd like it, Griffin.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
It's such a relief when
made.
watch a movie like that you've somehow missed, and you've assumed in your mind like that thing's gonna be a relic of its time. It'll understand some of the values, but it's gonna age weirdly or not age poorly, but just like.
Job.
And then you watch it, and you're just like, this thing fucking rules.
And also, Robin Williams is gone, and so it's one of his like all heart performances. It's brilliant.
And Robert Wool.
Oh, Bobby's in it.
Bobby's in it.
Yeah.
Bobby.
And
he dies, in Gwen's arms at the intersection of Pennsylvania and 14th and Washington, D.C., where they were working. And that's it. It is quite a way to go. All his friends go out to dinner on his tab, which was specified in his will.
Was he unhealthy? What was going on?
Yeah, he smoked like 1
he looked
billion
like shit when he died. He looked horrible. Yeah. Oh my god.
So bad.
I mean, the idea that he got to pick Roy Scheider to play him is like, yes, I'd like Jessica Chastain to play me, please, and I would like her to be really amazing. And
Scheider's also just like in such amazing shape in that movie.
Roy Scheider's fabulous in it. That's why it is so unfair to see Eric Roberts get the Roy Scheider treatment in this movie about being an incel piece of shit.
Yes.
Yeah. As opposed to, someone who is a complicated person making fabulous art.
Yes.
And, the final memory here is David Picker, one of his guys, saying when he got home, there was a phone message on his machine from Bobby saying, like, I want to talk to you about the script you just sent me. Like, he's still talking about show business, and Bobby is dead.
That's what he says in all that jazz. Work, that's all there is.
Yeah. It is a fascinating career. There's no question. I would love to see some of. I wish he had made like 5 more movies.
It's absolutely a shame that he didn't make more.
Yeah.
How much in this series, which I'm very excited to listen to, did you or were you able to discuss about theater, knowing that theater is not something you can just call up and say, oh, this is what Chicago was.
Yeah, we talk a lot on the Cabaret episode about the various permutations of that show.
We had
the
Rachel
movie's
Zegler on
so
that
much
one.
better than the show.
I agree.
Maybe people are not on record in the theater world as much as they,
or
but
they're
it
so
is
different, the movie and the show. I think the approach
so
to the movie is brilliant.
There's some wonderful performances from the stage, and I loved seeing Alan Cumming, and I know that there's a fabulous production in London, apparently.
Yeah, Jesse
with
Buckley
Eddie Redmayne is
and
apparently fabulous, and just yes. But that film really took it and just exploded it. So it was.
We have our researcher JJ is great and has put together what he calls a Fosse, which is a dossier of Fosse related facts. So we've tried to stay up on sort of the context of the important theater works in between those things and the different productions. And then we had Zegler on the Cabaret episode, who's such a student of the history of musical theater. But it's
impossible to
is the
analyze.
Hard thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I so
trying
often
to catch a cloud or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I'll like read Wikipedia entries when I can't sleep at night, even prior to this series, and go down rabbit holes of like certain actors' careers and it's like, what were the big fucking Broadway shows that elevated them, or these famous, productions of these classic works or whatever. And there is this feeling of like,
you had to be there, buddy.
You
had to be there
for it. Yeah.
Right. I will say, did you discuss Liza with a Z?
We're
doing
discussing
that on our
it will
Patreon.
Come out
I think it will
now.
post.
I will come back to discuss Liza with a Z. I think Liza with a Z is such an incredible example of how you can direct theater for film.
Yeah.
And in a way that I can't think of anything else, because everything else is sort of PBS archive. Make sure that they're in focus.
Yeah.
And just, people be like,
it is
just
so difficult.
believe me.
I know.
Well,
it's like, do you cut it all?
He shows Gwen Verdon in the audience losing her mind. Liza backstage, all of the edits, he can do exactly the right, like, you do the medium shot for the hand flick that he wants. The cutting is just sublime. It is such an incredible, I've never seen a better example of shooting theater.
It's been a little chunk of time since we recorded our Sweet Charity episode, a movie I enjoyed greatly.
Great movie.
And then since then, I pretty much, maybe in 2 months, have had If They Could See Me Now stuck in my head on a continuous loop.
And you've seen Gwen perform it, but it's on variety shows.
So this is what I was going to say. So I've like gone down this rabbit hole where I keep on watching any performance of it I can by anyone at a high level, right? So every different film version of Gwen Verdon doing it, different variety shows, doing it at the Tonys or career retrospectives. There are many different, but none of them are equivalent to that being properly adapted to film, say had she been in the theatrical film, or B, capturing the feeling of seeing her do it live. I watched fucking Sutton Foster do it and Christina Applegate do it and whatever.
Oh, yeah, that was bad. Yeah.
I went to see...
she's great, but
I went to see Tony Danza at Cafe Carlisle.
I'm sorry for your loss.
I had a ball of a time.
Yeah.
I was enjoying it.
The 20s, then Woody came out with his clarinet. And,
he didn't. It was just Danza.
I know.
It was just Danza with a little soft shoe.
All right.
Woody nowhere.
Just a little? It's a $27 martini. And,
this is true.
Of course.
But then at the end of it, he did fucking If They Could See Me Now. And I almost started crying. I'm just like, I'm so fucking into this song.
Oh, really? You've seen Kathy Lee Gifford sing it for Carnival Cruise?
I've seen, I've been like watching every fucking, listening to every version of it.
It's a fun song. Cy Coleman is fabulous. Have you listened, City of Angels at all? Fabulous
know
show.
of it. Yes.
Wonderful. Enjoy it. Enjoy the soundtrack. It's a, Gelbart wrote the book.
Okay.
Yes, and David Zippel, the Hercules guy.
It's a wonderful show. Yep. But Cy Coleman's fabulous.
It is that thing that's so fucking frustrating. And it's why I'm happy Fosse Verdon exists as a series to like sort of contextualize her importance.
It's imperfect, but there are 3 episodes that are drop dead.
Agreed.
Pip and Lenny and I don't remember, maybe the pilot or
But it is that thing where you're just like, you have to kind of take people's word to some degree. And especially with that one, where it's just like, well, everyone agreed at the time that came out that the flaw of the movie, one of the inherent flaws of the movie was try as she might.
Shirley?
Yeah, it's just like
Shirley's innocent. Shirley's innocent. He was excited about the 60s effect. It's way too long.
Way too long.
He's doing everything at once.
Right.
But Big Spender is shot the way the show was meant to. That to me is a perfect translation.
So cool.
There's great shit in it. But like, yeah, it just all is like, why couldn't I see Verdon do this? Why does this only exist in my head? Why is this? It just becomes a fucking legend.
Well, Verdon is in Damn Yankees, which is kind of shocking.
Yes,
that she. But yeah, whatever Lola wants. That to me that's my whatever worm, eye worm.
Yeah.
The scene in the locker room.
I rewatched that again recently as well because of this. But it is that thing. It's tough to talk about someone.
She was precision. She was like what do they say, like Dionysus versus what is it? Apollonia, like the the like line versus like, feeling versus brain, basically.
Sure.
Like Verdon was precision.
Yeah.
And then Ranking was like all feeling, sensuality.
Yeah.
All round and not surprising she had arthritis and all those health problems. You think she probably had no joints or any stability. But I mean, oh my God, those two, and I know it's not nice to think about women as like, well, you got your Jackies and your Marilyns, but like, wow, those two as muses to him, absolute, just incredible artists that he was able to use as paintbrushes, but also they were, holding the brush as well. So
Liza kind of dead center between them almost.
Well, Liza's a wonderful actress, and I think she was able to, that's a really interesting point where Liza,
in terms of style and technique, yeah,
she's a fabulous singer. She acts through her singer, and then as a dancer, she's just this like floppy fun noodle, she's this goofy noodle, absolute loopy, and a beautiful dancer in her own right, but so personality driven that it is like that's film acting for you.
I love Liza.
I do too.
I can't wait to talk Liza with this team.
We're very lucky to have her.
Let's do the box office game, Griffin. Okay. And then let's do our Fosse ranking.
Okay.
I think that's all we have to do left, right?
I think so.
Star 80. We're going to talk about the box office of the week this movie came out. Julie. Okay. Opened in limited release. It's not in the top 5.
Okay.
This is November 1983.
Okay.
November 11th.
Okay.
Remember. Number 1 of the box office is a generational classic.
It's not Return of the Jedi.
No. I mean generational. I really mean it.
Not E.T. or
not E.T. Good guesses. I mean, it's about a generation.
Oh, it's not
American
the Big Chill.
Graffiti.
It is the Big Chill.
It is the Big Chill. I
oh gosh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, 1983. Okay. The big. Yeah. How much of love's fun, sex, fun, and friendship can a person take?
Yeah,
that's the tagline for the Big Chill. Huge hit.
Yeah. I was having this conversation the other day about how like Motown embraced that movie and released the soundtrack on their label, and it was like this big boost to all those old artists.
It made Motown white, yeah.
If they were just like, here's this movie about like
white yuppies enjoying black music,
right? I just the think pieces for that
while they're doing their chores in their summer home. It's dreadful.
Right. While they're washing the dishes.
Big Chill is right. It's kind of an whatever
disgrace racially.
Well, sure. I mean, not that these people would have, non-white friends, but but I've only seen it once on my grandma's
they couldn't
TV.
have gotten into that college anyway.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it Grand Canyon that's kind of trying to be like Gen X Big Chill or whatever, and everyone's like
Grand Canyon is
from it?
So glad we're talking about Grand Canyon.
I have not seen. I saw The Big Chill as a teenager on my grandma's TV in Utica on like a 12-inch screen. I remember. That's how I remember The Big Chill.
Sure.
With my mom constantly interjecting, being like, "You don't understand, like you don't get it." Let me try to explain to you.
Yeah. I think that's how I think I like half watched it as like a 10 or 12-year-old on TV, and my dad trying to explain to me like, but this was like when it came out, it was
this
like
kind of blew everyone's mind.
It's definitely worth rewatching as an adult because it was such an adult movie when children's entertainment with Star Wars is for children,
right?
Big Chill's for adults. Never the tween shall meet.
Right. This weird branching off point where Kasdan has like fucking launched Indiana Jones and done the Star Wars sequels and is like, and now I make movies for the yuppies.
Movie.
Right.
Number 2 the box office is James Bond film.
In 83.
But it's a weird one.
It's a weird one. It's not Never Say Never Again.
It is Never Say Never Again.
Which you say doesn't
count. It does not count. It is a remake of Thunderball. It's a bad movie, but it is directed by Irvin Kershner.
Yeah.
Number 3,
who's Empire Strikes Back follow-ups were not good. His best
it's true. Yeah.
We're behind.
Number 3 of the box office is a stand-up movie. It's a stand-up comedy film.
Punchline?
No. It's not like
Eddie
a movie
Murphy?
about stand-up comedy.
Eddie Murphy?
It's not Eddie Murphy, but a comic of that renown.
A comic of that? Is it a Richard Pryor?
Yes.
Live on the Sunset Strip?
No. It's the later one.
What's the later one? Is it the name of the venue, or does it have a catchy title?
It's a catchy title, I guess.
I don't think I know.
Richard Pryor, Here and Now.
Oh.
I think it's his last concert movie.
Yes.
At least that was released in theaters.
Yes.
Yeah,
George Carlin's never been funny, and I'm sick of seeing all this shit about abortion with his face connected to it. That's all. When will Jesus bring the pork chops?
I've never listened to George Carlin's comedy. I know nothing of George Carlin.
Yeah,
I'm gonna admit this
I like
now.
Judd Apatow's Gary Shandling doc.
Yeah,
well, Gary Shandling doc was amazing. Yeah,
I liked the Carlin doc just because I
could have lost 45 minutes. Same Lenny review, but I loved it. I thought it was a beautifully made doc. I couldn't watch that George Carlin movie if you gave me money.
I love Shandling. Like, I genuinely loved him as an artist. Whereas Carlin, I watched that and I think he is very interesting.
Did watch it?
I did. Okay. I did. I had COVID. I was stuck in bed. It went up.
COVID. Oh, if only George Carlin were alive to speculate on COVID. Yeah, you got your vax, you got your Moderna. Yeah. Oh, kill me.
No, but I was like, I was stuck in bed and I was like, give me 5 hours of fucking. And he is interesting as a figure. He is interesting.
Disagree. Met a million guys. No, a million guys like that.
I'm not saying him. I'm saying in terms of like charting the way that comedy evolves around him.
Sure.
That he's almost like a Forrest Gump line across the different.
Absolutely, his influence more than his. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I don't necessarily.
I like the jeans he wore over the years.
This is true.
But this is the thing. I have no negative Carlin. I've just never done it.
I watched these 5 hours and I was like, I should fucking put on a Carlin special. And then I put it on. And I was like, I don't really enjoy watching this.
Yeah.
I find his
That's
existence
a work day.
Interesting.
5 hours. Yeah.
I know. Well, COVID.
Number 4 at the box office was number 1 the week before.
Okay.
It is a comedy flop. It's got big stars.
Big flop 83 comedy.
Yeah. Big director.
Big director.
Is it John Landis?
No.
It's not Best Defense, is it?
No, but it is
it's similar to that?
Military arms comedy.
Is it the fucking is it the Chevy Chase,
yes.
Gregory Hines?
Yes, Sigourney Weaver.
Oh.
And it's called Deal of the Century?
Yes, and who directed it?
Oh.
It's directed by William
Oscar-winning
Friedkin?
director, William Friedkin.
Oh, interesting.
Not someone who screams Chevy Chase comedy.
Right. They're arms dealers or what?
Yes. Chevy Chase is an arms dealer. And I don't know, whatever.
That's one of those movies where I remember seeing the video box and turning it around and being like, this is a fucking thing? What are you fucking talking about?
Yeah.
The posters, all three of them with like aviators giving a thumbs up.
Yeah,
right?
my head would spin like Reagan's in The Exorcist away from the television screen.
It doesn't make a full rotation. It lands when it's
look away
from the screen.
What's over there?
Yeah.
Not this movie.
It had opened number 1 the week before. It's dropped to number 4. So clearly people are like, PU.
Yeah.
Number 5 at the box office is an early film from a big star.
Early film, big star.
Still a big star.
A cruise?
It's a cruise.
It's a cruise. It's a cruise. It's not Risky Business.
No, it's even earlier.
Is it Taps?
Not Taps.
Is it? It's not Losing It?
Not Losing It.
It's not All the Right Moves?
It is All the Right Moves. There you go.
Well, I got there.
You see his dick in it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I watched Cocktail for the first time. That's a confounding movie.
Cocktail is...
My mother's always had a crush on Brian Brown.
I mean,
Brian Brown's kind of hot in Cocktail.
Yes.
I get it.
Brian Brown in Cocktail also is playing it like he's in a drama.
Yes.
And the movie is sort of like, who cares, right? But like he is definitely trying to be locked in that movie. That movie is bizarre.
It's bizarre. It is so bizarre.
Because it's like Tom Cruise wants to be a big hit in the city. He can't figure it out. He can't get hired, right? So he becomes a waiter at a bartender at TGI Fridays.
Correct.
And he's so good at it that he gets to be a bartender at a better bar.
Right.
And then that falls apart when he cheats on his girlfriend for no good reason as part of like a bet.
Right.
And then the movie cuts to like 3 years later and they're in Jamaica or the Bahamas or whatever.
Yes.
They're in the Caribbean.
Uh-huh.
And then it becomes kind of like a murder movie, or like not like kind of like a Brian Brown is underwater.
I just remember the poem. The poem is everything. The stuff in the
yeah. I was digging into it. I mean, it sounds like it was like
it was a tougher script that got sanded
They were
down,
trying to make like Bright Lights, Big City or some shit.
Oh, really? I just watched it at a slumber party.
And then
a slumber party
right.
movie.
This is what's confounding about it. And then at some point they were just like, we got to make it a fucking Tom Cruise movie. And they like reshot half of it, and it becomes more about him winning back Elizabeth Shue and her being a secret rich girl in the penthouse and all that sort of shit. But like the murder mystery of Kelly Lynch gets sort of like punted.
Fine.
It's very bizarre. It's very bizarre. Kokomo, though.
Oh, yeah.
Aruba, Jamaica.
Do I want to take
you? Etc. Some other movies in the top 10. The Dead Zone.
Oh, sure.
Cronenberg.
Fabulous movie.
Yeah.
Brooke Adams. Movie.
Inspiration for one of my favorite SNL sketches of all time.
What's that?
Ed Glosser, Trivial Psychic. Do you remember this one?
Oh, yeah, that's funny.
It's when Walken went on, I think his first time hosting to promote the Dead Zone. And he's a guy where anytime anyone touches them, he gets a premonition of the most trivial thing that's about to happen in their life. You're going to get coffee. It's going to be a little too hot. Like, burn me? No, just a little too hot.
That's funny.
For people, I wasn't even trying to do a Walken impression. I don't want to fail. I don't want to even try.
The Right Stuff.
Oh, sure.
Educating Rita. Good movie.
Wait, is Return of the Jedi in here anywhere?
Yes, number 18. It's been out for half a year.
Sure. So, I'm just saying, it's interesting that even the culture has changed so much by this point that certainly half a year into Star Wars' run, it was higher
in the top 10 or whatever.
Empire Strikes Back was higher up. Now these things are fizzling out faster.
But it's made whatever, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It's a big hit.
It's a big hit.
That's
Ewok,
the
don't run
office.
to the theater.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember that was a thing Entertainment Weekly
really?
said. Yeah.
And then, what's your Fosse 5?
It's tough.
To make the Fosse 5.
Well, no, it's easy to make the 5 because he didn't make a 6th film. I feel like I go All That Jazz Above Cabaret.
I do too. But I'm not sure about it. But
I'm not sure about it either. It's also the thing.
Do you, Julie?
I don't know. I don't want to, I don't want to throw away Revolver because I like Abbey Road. It's not. It's impossible. I would put Cabaret and All That Jazz as number 1. They're both just absolute essential masterpieces.
Well, it's also just like that's like All That Jazz is about as defining a statement as an artist has ever made, right?
Cabaret beat The Godfather.
No, I know. I'm just saying in terms of just
I'm just trying to remember because I'm not nearly as knowledgeable as you are in terms
beat
of
it
context.
For director, not for picture.
Oh, it didn't?
Yes, it loses picture, it wins director.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
There's this weird Fosse Coppola thing that we've talked about.
But what a fabulous!
Oh yeah.
Despite that, what an undeniable masterpiece.
Yes.
To shoot for the king, and you best not miss.
This is, I mean, what I said to Ben. I'm just like, do you know who he beat out for best director that year?
Yeah.
Francis Ford Coppola in The Godfather, the guy we use as shorthand for directing a movie well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just the thing, unfortunately, that Cabaret just feels more and more relevant as time goes on. It just feels like this incredibly...
That shot of the distorted Nazis and the brass.
The fucking end. It's just will never not be haunting.
People hadn't seen a movie about the Holocaust, and not just the Holocaust, but also in the tradition of great musicals. Gypsy, by the way, best musical ever. Not my favorite. My favorite is Sunday in the Park.
Okay.
The best musical ever is Gypsy. It's at the end of vaudeville.
Yeah.
The idea that this is the end of Weimar and the beginning of something, and it is the period of dread and great art. Just and people it's like the producers being like, oh my god, think of it, this was less than a generation away.
You're right.
And this guy comes out with, I mean, fine, the mafia, sure, there are I mean, Pauline Kael was close, but otherwise there are no words. What a masterpiece.
I agree. Yeah, I don't know.
I'd say Cabaret Photo Finish number 2 for me, and then I guess
you'd go Star 80 Sweet.
No, I think I'd go Lenny.
Interesting.
Star 80 Sweet Charity. But it is this thing of just like, Sweet Charity is a lumpy movie that brings joy versus Star 80, a film that just makes me think very deeply about everything I hate about the world. Like,
but have I convinced you that it's merely powerful, not fabulous?
I think you have certainly
it would be wild to call that movie fabulous.
Yeah.
Or even great.
I'll say this. Like, I don't know if I will ever watch it ever again in my life. And just even academically feel the need to study it.
But that's experiential. I think
I'm
even
not saying,
quality that you watched it recently and you you still think it's a great film. I mean, he still made it.
But
it's on a level with, I don't know.
I wish he hadn't. Is that weird to say?
No, it's not.
I wish he hadn't.
It's not.
No, it's not weird to say. I mean, I just
a
find
nasty thing to say about a thing,
to
though.
be just a completely.
I wish you hadn't been born. Like, what a terrible thing to say.
It's not. No one.
Right.
You're not
Should I
wishing
take it
death
back?
on
Maybe
anyone.
I should
You're
take it
just
back.
wishing.
You're talking millions of dollars and people's time, and
you're wishing a sliding doors moment in his career.
It hurt women. It hurt people.
It certainly didn't help anybody. Yeah, and I think you present a very pervasive argument for the damage of it. Yeah.
Persuasive argument.
Persuasive,
yes.
yes.
It would be,
and I think I don't know. I think it's like to some degree the movie contains the evil I think it's about, and
absolutely
it
perpetuates it. It's
that's
pornography.
So the question is, like, am I giving it credit for capturing the thing that I think it is? Is it doing that with any insight, or is it just merely not. Fucking trapping an evil genie?
But then,
in a bottle?
Do you need self-awareness in order to make something great? Not
These are complicated questions. Yeah.
But Sweet Charity, thank God it exists. There are people finding Rich Man's Frug on YouTube every day.
Yeah, I mean the pieces of Sweet Charity are like
absolutely Rhythm of Life is a joy.
So is that your 3?
I'm a brass band. I think it's my 5.
Oh no, sorry.
Lenny is number 3. Star 80 number 4. I think Sweet Charity is number 5.
Wow, really?
I think I have it. I think
but Sweet Charity's got those joyful. Wow,
this is what I'm saying. It's like a fucking.
Put Star 80 last. You'll feel better about yourself.
Probably won't. David, what's your?
I have Star 80 last, although I'm not sure about it and Lenny. Like, because like Lenny is a movie where I'm like, I think that's I didn't respond too much to it, but I do think it's like beautifully made and well done. And Star 80, I actually responded to it quite a lot, but I also kind of want to put it away in a corner.
I mean, if someone showed you a video of someone being shot in the head, you'd respond to that.
No, I've seen that, and I responded to that differently, which I didn't like that either, to be clear. But like, when on YouTube, what's her name? Christine Chubbuck. I haven't seen that video, but like once when I was a teenager, someone showed me one of those.
But I mean, like emotional reaction is not necessarily indicative.
No.
But I'm like. But I'm a film critic. I see a lot of fucking movies, and a lot of movies just kind of wash over me. Like I certainly, I respect a movie that will provoke a reaction.
No, it's not boring.
Yeah,
I'll say this too. There are movies that like upset me that I don't give any credit to. Like I don't think just eliciting an emotional response out of me immediately I give credit.
But what a shame that he used his talent to make such a nasty.
I cannot disagree with that.
I go Cabaret. I'm going to go Cabaret. All that jazz. Okay. Sweet Charity. Lenny. Star 80.
Okay. I'm probably gonna do the same, but I can't compare Cabaret and all that jazz.
I'm gonna put Cabaret as the top as a very, very powerful sentimental favorite movie that like changed my life when I was like
when we're all dead,
13
people
or whatever.
Should see Cabaret first.
Yeah.
All that jazz. It's very close at those.
I mean, and I've just seen people preparing for these episodes coming out, watching Cabaret for the first time, going, like,
you must. That is
shit.
Not
I
negotiable.
cannot believe how
not negotiable.
Yeah, how modern this film still feels, how bracing it feels. Yeah.
But that's it. That's Bob. What a time with Bob we've had.
Bobby.
Look, I've always wanted to do it almost since the beginning of this podcast because I just think it is. His film career is not thought of as a complete sort of statement, and for ups and downs, it really is an interesting one. I mean, and just the weird, like, the fact that does Coppola have a movie this year?
The Outsiders is this year.
Okay.
Why? What's your what?
No, the thing of like Cabaret, Godfather 2, Lenny, all that jazz, Apocalypse Now.
Sure,
that they had this weird sort of like dance.
Right, but now they're both kind of in a weird decline.
I know.
Yeah.
What would have lined up perfectly is if One from the Heart was the same year
or
as this.
Cotton Club, which is 84.
Right, Cotton Club's the one
that's coming.
It should have been the same year as this. Yeah. Okay. Well, life doesn't work out.
Also, you have to put Sweet Charity above Star 80 because Sweet Charity is a movie musical, and there are so few fabulous, exceptional movie musicals.
It's true, and the guy knew how to fucking.
I love Sweet Charity.
To sync up his choreography with his filmmaking.
Yes, in a way the few did. It's a shame that he didn't make more musicals.
And speaking of a shame, and I think it is absolutely imperative that we say this, AIDS wiped out an entire generation of gay men who were disproportionately the most brilliant theater artists, specifically, not to mention artists, period.
Yeah.
I think very frequently about what kind of filmmaker a Michael Bennett would have been or could have been. Bob Fosse was an example of a director choreographer that got a chance to make a film. And I think about all of the privilege that all the people that AIDS took from us could have had just like him.
Well, I mean, we did the Musker and Clements, the Disney directors, a year or two ago, which ended up being a lot about Howard Ashman as well.
Mhm.
And it's the pipeline of animation. The fact that things take years and years to get made means that even though he died so young,
Right.
there are like 3 films with his fingerprints on them on top of Little Shop, right?
Oh, Little
Where
Shop's
like
fabulous.
he was able to have these films that were coming out years after he had died, posthumously winning Oscars, and also like having that ripple effect on our understanding of storytelling at large.
Yes.
Like even though he never got the chance to direct the films himself.
Right.
You're
right.
like,
And
that's a guy who somehow was able to overcome the limited time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I do like Adam Shankman.
But what could he have done?
Director choreographer who was able to direct and choreograph Hairspray.
Yes.
The fabulous, that's another fabulous movie musical.
Agreed.
And so much of the visual language takes its cues from the choreography and the editing. So what a shame, what a shame, what a shame.
Yep. I agree. Very well said.
Yeah.
This has been our mini series on Bob Fosse. Julie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Julie.
Is there anything you want to plug?
Yeah. I mean, double threat.
Double threat.
Yeah, double threat. Yeah, it was very, very challenging watching this in the aftermath of Roe v. Wade and just thinking about women being treated like animals, and we do not treat animals well. So
it's a rough time. It's a rough time.
It was very, very really just grieving and painful. And I don't know.
No.
It's not a plug, just a thought.
Absolutely.
Yep. But thank you for having me on.
Our pleasure. Long overdue. Our next mini series proper is Stanley Kubrick, our March Madness competition winner.
Well, please think about Star 80 when you talk about Clockwork Orange.
We will. It's a good.
Think about
connective
how people say rape isn't about sex unless you shoot it real sexy.
It is a movie I've not seen, I think, since I was 13 years old, and I'm very curious to rewatch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fear and Desire, Killer's Kiss, one episode.
Yeah, combining them, and then one episode per movie after that. Pods wide cast.
No, we're gonna combine 2001 and Barry Lyndon. Who fucking?
Yeah, it's gonna be a short one too.
We'll double them up.
It's gonna be like 80 minutes.
Yeah,
right. It'll be like our fucking THX American Graffiti.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing that. But yeah, our first Kubrick episode is Killer's Kiss and Fear and Desire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to cover his movies. I mean, it's like, especially after coming off of Fosse, where all these movies are about like this guy working through all his fucking demons.
Right.
The Kubrick movies, it's there's obviously just the whole thing of like, who the fuck was this guy?
Sure.
You know,
weird mystery god man.
Hard he worked to try to keep himself out of his movies.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Marie Barty for our social media and helping put the show together. Alex Barron, AJ McKeon for our editing. Thank you to JJ Birch for our research, putting together the Fossiers, which I know were particularly difficult ones, especially this one.
Yeah, I think this one was annoying. I think he had fun though. He
did, but there's some difficult material.
Oh yeah.
This series. Thank you to Joe Bond and Pat Reynolds for our artwork. Lane Montgomery, the Great American Elf, for our theme song. Go to blankcheckpod.com for some real nerdy shit, including Blank Check special features, our Patreon page, where we do commentaries on franchises like the Roger Moore James Bonds.
Yes.
That's what we're doing.
Right. Yes, that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. Tune in next week for whatever we just told you is coming next week.
Right.
And as always,
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Great. Hail Satan.
David?
Yep.
The CFOs that get it, get it. The CFOs that don't. Am I making myself clear?
Yeah, let's talk about the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer.
Today's CFO is critical to the strategy and success of the business. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah, and in growing companies, there are two kinds of CFOs. One who's struggling to keep up, spreadsheets everywhere, manual processes, errors, lack of visibility into the numbers.
Sounds like you.
Weeks to close the books.
The other is more like me, kind of on top of their game, automated reports, inventory, e-commerce, and HR flow into the financial model seamlessly. Insights coming with the click of a button. This is the kind of thing. It feels even weird for this to be captured on
Everyone
mic.
knows these dynamics.
But also, you and I are just batting around this conversation all the time. This is our casual.
We're constantly editing it out of the show just because it gets repetitive. But with NetSuite, okay, it gives you visibility and control of all your financials, inventory, HR, planning, budgeting, everything you need to grow all in one place. And that's why it's the number one cloud financial system used by over 29,000 growing businesses.
David, it's like I told you. I already said this. I don't know how much more clear I can make myself. The CFOs that get it, get it. The CFOs that don't.
Yeah, NetSuite's the number one cloud financial system to power your growth. And you can automate your processes. You can close your books in no time. You can stay well ahead of your competition. 93% of surveyed businesses increase their visibility and control after upgrading to NetSuite.
It makes so much sense. I completely understand everything we're saying. And David, I must call to action now.
Yeah.
Over 29,000 businesses already use NetSuite. So here's what I want you to do.
Do it. Tell me.
I want you to head to netsuite.com/check for a special one-of-a-kind financing offer. That's netsuite.com/check. netsuite.com/check. David.
What's up?
David.
What's up?
When the weather is warm, you can't help but get out and explore.
True. That's true. I mean, unless it's too warm.
It's important to refresh and refuel after a long summer getaway.
I know. Whether you're planning for the next big summer trip or recovering from one, it's important to give your body the fuel it needs to feel its best.
I don't know if you feel this way. I feel like it's been so hot everywhere. I don't know if you've been reading this in the news.
It's been a bit of a long, hot summer. That's
plants
true.
on fire. I feel like everyone's just going like, I got to get somewhere else. It's got to be better somewhere else.
Yeah,
right?
Sure. Right.
I got to get away. It's brutal. It's brutal here. Maybe the solution is getting away. Maybe it's getting something better inside your body.
Well, with Splendid Spoon, you can enjoy a clean, delicious, stress-free meal in just minutes. And it takes the work out of eating healthy because, like you're saying, it delivers ready-to-eat plant-based meals, smoothies, and juices right to your door.
David, am I mistaken in believing that you just got a big old box of Splendid Spoon
everything
delivered to your doorstep?
Tell
me what
everything.
you got. Tell me what you got.
Well, because they've got the plant-based meals, like they said, right? So, you got these very nice meal kits that you can work, that are like whole recipes. But then I got some smoothies. Okay. I got some juices. I got some grain bowls. I got some soups. I got some noodle bowls. They actually really loaded me up. It was pretty nice.
David, can I ask you some quick questions?
Yeah.
How did Splendid Spoon fit into your daily routine?
Basically saves you time. Like, it's either quick snacks that you can try.
Sure.
Or it's like quick meals that you can make that are really healthy.
Well, hold on. Let me scratch off question number 2. Did it save you time?
Yeah.
What was your favorite dish? Did one jump out at you?
Well, I really liked the smoothies in general, I'll say. But the rice bowls, got a coconut curry rice bowl, kale, cashews, really good. Very summer appropriate, not too hot.
Yeah.
Kind of like vegetably and summery. Had a good smoothie. I'm a big mango person. The mango guava smoothie was really good.
David, I'm going to ask you to answer this next question with radical honesty because the answer might make you sound like a fool.
Okay, but remember that I'm very hungry and I actually totally want to wrap this up.
I want to eat some Splendid Spoon.
Yep.
David, I speak from the present tense. Even if this answer makes the old version of you sound like a fool, were you surprised by how much flavor a plant-based meal could have?
A little surprised.
Yeah, that old idiot who didn't know.
It sounds, like it could be a little plant-based. Oh, wait a second. But no, it's really good stuff. And you feel really nice. It's, easy on the old tummy. Easy to digest.
Easy on the old tum-tum.
Gives you some energy. And more importantly, it fits in any schedule. There's a meal plan for everyone. It's all plant-based, gluten-free, GMO-free. 50
choices, constantly rotating menu. There are always new choices of dishes to try.
So stay well-fueled this summer with Splendid Spoon. Get started today and save on an entire week of ready-made plant-based meals. Just go to splendidspoon.com/check for $50 off your first box when you subscribe. That's $50 off at splendidspoon.com/check.
I'm just thinking about what an idiot you were thinking that plant-based meals couldn't taste that good.
What a fool I am.
What a fool you were.
Sorry.
David, Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. I feel like I'm losing my mind saying this over and over again. When are you going to take the hint?
I know, because people spend hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, whereas Indeed is a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all.
No, but what I'm trying to tell you is that you can find great talent faster through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Why can't you get this through your head?
Instant Match, for example.
Yes.
Over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job.
Yeah,
That's
I know,
Indeed
David.
Data
I
US.
know that. But one of the things that I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy because no other job site takes care of you like Indeed, because with Indeed, you only have to pay if an applicant meets your must-have requirements.
Yes, that's right. Puts you in control of what you pay. You set your must-have job requirements. You pay for the applications that meet them. There's a transparent flat fee per application. You can pause your job posting whenever you want.
David, Indeed is an unbelievably powerful hiring partner, delivering 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest 2019. Ever heard of them?
I'm going to do a call to action.
Please. It's about time you start carrying your own weight in these ad reads.
Indeed's doing something no other job site has done. Now with Indeed, businesses only pay for quality applications matching the sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/check to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/check, Indeed.com/check. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire, you need Indeed.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying this whole time.